Trust the whaling consortium. Build. Collapsed.
Hello and welcome back. This is week 2 of the Eternal Super League. My name is Andre from the Metrovol Grid. Really excited to be here, and thanks so much for joining us on this Sunday afternoon. For those who are tuning in for the first time, welcome. This is the Eternal Super League. We have a bunch of nice folks who've been playing some Eternal format over the last couple weeks in a 9-week league. Now, I'm not alone. I'm joined by one of the organizers of the Eternal Super League, Warlock from across the pond. How's it going?
Hello, everyone. Pretty well. I'm Warlock. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to comment on week 2. I'm really happy to see more and more Eternal gameplay, so stay tuned.
We're also joined by a veritable falcon of the format himself, Cobra Bubbles. How are you doing?
Hello, yeah, that's me. I'm here with my fellow member of the Hacker Hall of Fame tonight. Should be a good one.
Yeah. So for those who are tuning in, Eternal Super League, right off the top, we'll explain how this works. Is we have 9 players who are playing an asynchronous league, playing this format called Eternal. If you're not familiar, Eternal is the format that includes all Netrunner cards, largely from FFG to NSG, and there is a balancing system. There's like a handful of banned cards, and most importantly, this format is balanced by a point system. So if you want to play any of these cards here that are pointed, full playset of those goes for as many points as the category they're in, and each deck has 7 points to build out from. We have 9 players, so every week they're playing round robin. We're going to be looking at 4 of those rounds today, so 8 games of Eternal. Now, Eternal, for a lot of folks who are getting to the game, is a bit of an unapproachable format. There's cards you don't know. It's a high power level format. Some games can be pretty quick and explosive. So our goal on this Sunday is to explain to you what's going on and help you appreciate this format, which I know I'm a big fan of, and the folks that are joining on comms are a huge fan of. Is there something really quickly off the top how you can sell Eternal for folks who haven't tried out Eternal yet? What's the big point that you think people should know?
It's tough. I think the most important thing is that you get to play with cards that have never seen each other, cards that were never meant to be played in the same format. That's what drives me to the format, is that finding gems between cards that maybe were underappreciated or underused, and figuring out extremely powerful combos that go between cards that the designer never even thought of when designing them.
Yeah, that's an important thing to keep in mind, is that when cards are modernly designed, there's no consideration about how these cards interact with Eternal. Eternal will balance itself. So you're going to see fun interactions between old and new. And I think, yeah, that is one of my favorite parts, is getting to see these old cards again. And for what it's worth, I'm not an expert at Eternal, but I've played all of these cards before because I've been playing this game for a long time. So for folks who have played back in the day or newer players, we have an absolute treat for you. So the way that the thing works is that all players are going to be playing their games throughout the weeks, and they are recording their games. So we're not going to be watching a live game. We're going to be watching a VOD of those games. So it's just a YouTube video that we're going to be watching through at real time. We can pause to talk about it. We're going to be bringing up all the cards that you might not know. And if you're in chat and you have any questions about Eternal or what's going on, or the cards that are interacting in certain ways, please don't hesitate to ask. Just to check in on the leaderboard real quickly, we're playing, I believe it's 9 weeks. This is the results after week 1. Because we have 9 players, every week 1 player has a bye week. That was off 15's week off. They will be playing this week. This week, Silent Arbiter, I believe, is having the bye week, but otherwise, these are some great names of some of the best players, whether they're known for playing Eternal, whether they've been playing for a long time, or whether they're relatively new Netrunner players. This is just a fantastic roster of folks. So we're going to see some really great games. Do y'all want to jump into the first game that we have today?
Let's go.
Yeah, let's hit it.
Okay, so I'm going to throw myself on mute. I'm going to leave you in the very good hands of these 2 players here. But otherwise, we're going to be watching. This is going to be HaverOfFun versus wren's games. And so we should be off. Good luck. Have fun, everyone.
Alrighty. Starting off with
Well,
Andromeda versus Ob. Ob, usually a combo-centric corp. We've seen Ren play this Drago Ob last week, so we'll see how HaverOfFun contests this very explosive build from Ren.
Yeah, speaking of interactions between old cards and new cards, Ob is like maybe the most iconic newer card in the Eternal format. There's all sorts of fun to be had in Standard with finding out which costed cards you can chain into which other ones with Ob. But when you have literally every card that's been printed since 2012 available to you, that you can come up with some really spicy stuff, and it seems like Ren has done that with this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. Here you have Ren installing 3 remotes and HaverOfFun checking one right away. That's a Markiel, a card that so very low play rate when it was legal in Standard, but now with Ob became one of the powerhouses of the format, being able to find Rashida and Spin Doctors for free using the Ob ability.
And then we see the second Mark Gale, which explains how the first one was allowed to be trashed. Pretty good exchange there for Ren. And we also see a current come down from HaverOfFun here. Currents, as people may know, are the one of the cornerstones of Eternal that are all banned in Standard at the moment, have been for a while. And this current is Corporate Grant, which is the one generally favoured by criminals. Applies just a little bit of a tax to just the corp trying to play the game, which is always a bit annoying. And of course, any current is removed when a current is played by the player on the other side of the table, or that player interacts with an agenda by scoring or stealing it. So this, against a combo deck like Ob, which is trying to probably kill the runner in some form, rather than score agendas, and that current might stick around for quite some time.
Yeah, that's the bane of some of these corp not scoring but going for combo kills. That fighting currents is tough at times. We see HaverOfFun with his first copy of Heartbeat. That's his protection of choice, extremely good when you know it saves you from any kind of damage. Very versatile into a very wide format, which is like Eternal.
Wow, yeah, HaverOfFun pointing out in the replay game chat here that there was a triple mark on turn 1. Big play from Wren there. Not something you see very often.
Yeah.
And yeah, this Heartbeat is going to be pretty important in the deck. You would assume. I mean, Eternal is a format kind of tech and of counter tech, right? So, as a corp that's trying to kill the runner, you have to assume that the runner's going to have at least one, and usually 2 or 3 of the many very good ways to not die that are present in the Eternal card pool. So, as corp, you have to be playing your own counters to the counters, right? So it'll be interesting to see whether any of the counter tech that Wren is playing actually lines up with Heartbeat, which until this tournament was a relatively lesser played piece of kill tech.
Absolutely. We see Wren playing their own countercurrent with scarcity of resources, and HaverOfFun clearing it almost right away. No, never mind. No, removing it from the game with Blue Moose. That's on me. So yeah, scarcity of resources is going to slow down. Maybe not as much as it could have done on turn 1, but definitely a good way of removing the current and flipping the economic core on the runner instead.
And then we see the Reconstruction Contract. So this is, I think, in many ways the card that Wren's deck is built around. Those who were playing in the few months at the start of 2024 may remember Reconstruction Contract Ob being a really important deck for a little while there before it was banned in Standard in the 2405 list, I believe. And yeah, in Lob deck, it's a pretty powerful card. If you can get any number of advancement counters on it, either from its own text, which puts them there when you deal meat damage, I believe, or from cards like the Hollow Man, or other cards that just place advancement counters, you can pop it with Ob to fetch any 0-cost card and put those counters straight on that card. Assuming you have a legal target for the advancements before you pop it. That gets complicated. Probably won't come up here. But yeah, you can do things like put a Drago into play to give the runner tags. You can put a Clearinghouse into play to deal damage at the start of turn, or an Urtica Cipher or equivalent into play to deal runner damage if they access it. So yeah, really flexible and threatening card, and dealing with this pinhole here makes things a lot easier for the time being for HaverOfFun.
Definitely. I think it's a very good point about having advanceable stuff on the board when you fire the Reconstruction Contract. Not because it might not be important, but it's because the runner can play around knowing that there are advanceable eyes on the board, or most likely there are advanceable eyes on the board. So we can expect stuff like Hortum or maybe Mausolus being res here to defend the servers. And that's something HaverOfFun is constantly thinking about when he's playing this game, probably.
Yeah, we can see that he's hopping back to look at his own deck list here and there, which is an artifact of how these games were recorded. We're going to get to see that. It's kind of a nice insight into how the players are thinking when they're taking the moments to think about what exactly they have, what they need, what they're going to bring to bear against their opponents.
So if you're HaverOfFun, what are you thinking of when you're playing this game? Like, what are your next thing you want to develop? Like, are you looking for more breakers? Are you looking for more money? Is protection going down quickly, or are you going to wait a little bit more? How would you approach this matchup?
Well, it's a tricky one. I mean, assuming you kind of know what's up, which now that you've seen the Reconstruction Contract, you can start to make a read. You're going to need to assemble some fairly specific kinds of cards to deal with that, right? Because generally, that's going to pop and turn into something that's going to immediately threaten to potentially end the game on the spot if some counters are put on the Reconstruction Contract. One way to prevent that, as we've seen, is Pinhole. Another one is the Political Operative that's in hand at the moment, which, if we can get it down, lets you interact with some of those threats at paid ability speed, which that might be why we fetched the paperclip here to get through that border control on HQ and install the Political Operative, which of course requires a successful run on HQ before it can be installed. I also think just getting Heartbeat down and some ammunition for it is pretty good. You're playing against a Widen deck that's presumably trying to kill you. Usually you would assume that would be happening with Boom, but maybe with Mutually Assured Destruction. And in either case, yeah, you're going to need some fuel for this Heartbeat that we see has now come down.
Definitely, yeah. HaverOfFun's deck doesn't look like it's filled with ammunition to feed the heartbeat yet, but we'll see if more ends up going in the grip and getting installed. Right now,
Yeah,
still
there's
fighting
another,
the. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there's another Heartbeat Andy deck in the tournament, which is it's being played by Silent Arbiter, I think, who's not playing this week. But that deck is playing copies of a card like Cash, for example. Oh, hello. I'll shut up. We've got some action going on here.
Yeah.
Drago has turned up.
2 tags being delivered and Scorched Earth coming down, trying to tax the runner on installed cards in hand, and ideally find a possible kill line next turn, by the looks of it.
Yeah, this is a good old-fashioned value Scorch from old heads. Love to see it. It's just last-click Scorch, so the runner knows there's no risk of, even if you take the full 4 damage, there's no risk of dying on this turn. But you've got some valuable tools in hand. We've got an icebreaker. We've got 2 pieces of tech here potentially that we might not want to lose. But then if we don't want to lose them, we have to lose cards from our board, which is also a bit of a sacrifice. So an interesting decision here.
Yeah, very high value board and hand for HaverOfFun, so it's going to be a tough one to choose. Looks like something went from the board. It was the alarm clock. Unfortunately, it did very little that game, and most of the hand is gone as well.
Yeah, so we keep the breaker, but we lose the tech. We lose Political Operative and Citadel Sanctuary, which would have helped us clear some of these tags here. We do get to keep the boomerang, so we're pretty guaranteed to get into this server and deal with the Drago, which is nice.
And getting rid of the tags as well, so Blue Moves doesn't go away. It'll keep generating more and more credits. That's a good way of restarting this economy from zero.
Yeah, both players after that exchange pretty low on credits. Wren having to click up for the hedge fund there, and now HaverOfFun starting with just the 2 Blue Moose credits to take their turn with.
Yeah. Also importantly, Wren is out of 2 of their 3 Spin Doctors, and with that, Op and Scarce of Resources, the points they have available are very, very little at this point.
Yeah, that's true. But then I guess if you're going for a kill strategy that isn't really touched by the points list with the Reconstruction Contract Drago situation, and using Scorched Earth as we saw, rather than something like High Profile Target, you're getting a bunch of points that way that you can spend on cards like the most powerful Corp Current available.
Yeah, you get to splurge a little bit.
Speaking of pointed cards, we have a crowdfunding coming down here. Nice little card. It's going to just give 3 credits, 1 a turn, straight off the bat. And then if HaverOfFun can ever run 3 servers in a turn, or it doesn't have to be 3 different servers, just make 3 successful runs, I believe. It can come right back out of the heap. And also when it pays out, it gives you a card. So just a very high value, one of the high value cards from the Magnum Opus Champ card set, as is the border control we see on the other side of the table.
Yep. Amazing also as Heartbeat Fodder, in case you ever need more and more cards on the board. That one keeps coming back as long as you can get runs in. That's going to be even more protection.
That's right, and really good in multiples, as we see the second copy in HaverOfFun's hand here. You can bring them all back at once.
That's unfortunately coming down for 2 credits now under the Scarcity of Resources, so that might not be the best investment HaverOfFun can go for right now, but it's definitely something he's thinking of.
True. Now we see a play that's going to maybe test the rules knowledge of the commentators here. HaverOfFun has played Rebirth to turn Andromeda into 4/1/9. So Rebirth is a card that lets you change your identity to a different identity from the same faction. Sort of same but not quite as DJ Fenris, who's still in Standard. And 4/9 is a card that you may know from Standard. It forces the Corp to expose a card that they install unless they pay 1. But that interacts kind of strangely with Orb. If that comes up, I'll try and explain. Conveniently, I edited the article where that rules change was made, so I have a little bit of knowledge about it. But for now, we just see a Drago triple advanced with a dedication ceremony, powerful old card that lets you put advancements on face-up cards, and a tag given to just try and tax some of HaverOfFun's resources here.
Yeah, removing the Blue Moose, hurting the runner's economy very much at this point. All those 11 cards in the bin would have easily become somewhat 16 credits or so, as all the removed cards from the game currently are almost all of them have been turned into credits with that Blue Moose.
And we see the 419 tax starting to bite here, as just for installing this extra ice on server 7 means Wren has to click for credits for the remainder of their turn.
Surprisingly, this kind of op doesn't seem to love playing CVS, the virus, I want to say, in terms of influence, which is something that other op lists and even op in standard would love to play. This one looks like it doesn't pack the natural virus tech that some op love to play, even if you're not playing against viruses.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there maybe aren't that many high value 2-cost cards in Wren's deck that they want to be fetching.
Yeah, that's more or less my understanding of that deck as well.
Which actually, if you're the opponent, potentially would give you, I guess you don't see that there's no CVS, so you wouldn't know, but for us it gives us some potential information that there's not an Estelle Moon being the remainder of the points in this deck. I think we've just seen the 4 points, so that's 3 available from the Eternal Points list.
We're actually on 5, I think. I think Ob is on 2,
okay.
And Scarce is on 2, so that would be 5 with the Spin Doctor.
Spin Doctor, thank you. Yes, good catch. Yeah, an innocuous card for standard players. We know it very well. But yeah, one of the things in Eternal is we have a lot of cards that you get multiple similar effects. So Spin Doctor, of course, is a redesign of Jackson Howard, our Lord and Savior, the one of the most important cards from FFG Netrunner. And both Jackson Howard and Spin Doctor are pointed just to prevent any deck, but particularly NBN decks, having easy access to 6 copies of that same powerful draw and recursion effect.
Another really important card, I think, in HaverOfFun's hand right now is that medium. That's gonna make it's gonna be his way to finding points. Right now, both players on 0, which is expected for the Corp, I want to say, but definitely something that Runner looks to fix in as few turns as possible.
Yeah, something you'll see in Eternal quite often is that the question of where the points are and who's going to get to them, the kind of thing that we expect to see a bit more of in Standard, is a little de-emphasized compared to sort of jockeying for position around the key powerful cards. So in this game, most of the competition has been around the Currents and around the Dragos. As we see, HaverOfFun's Countercurrent get immediately countered by the Countercurrent to put Scarcity back on the map. But also, yeah, you mentioned the medium. We are down to less than 10 cards in R&D here. And as we all know, Ob loves to lose an R&D. That's where your agendas are going to be, because all your other cards are getting set out of your deck. And yeah, HaverOfFun choosing to pressure that here.
Absolutely. I think he's also looking to find his 3 successful runs here to get the crowdfundings back, and that's exactly why he's running archives here. Finding an NAPD card on an SSL.
And we do see a high-profile target on the top of archives there, so that's some more points. So not just Scorched Earth, but multiple different sources of tag-based meat damage available for Wren.
Yep.
Can't trust the reconstruction contract. That could be scary. Consideration maybe to pop the bankroll here and go straight back for it, to just really respect that card. Yeah, looks like that's what we're doing.
Secondary mode, making sure nothing fancy is going on, and that's exactly what happens.
And we get those crowdfundings back. And also by stealing the agenda, we did clear the scarcity of resources, so
yeah,
pretty nice sequence.
Very important.
As it turns out in that current war.
Also, I'm going to correct you again on points. I don't think HPT is on the point list currently.
Oh, my bad. Thank you for correcting me.
It's only the mutual assured distraction side of the combo that's currently pointed, I think.
That's right. Yeah, HPT, another card that's banned in Standard, but not pointed in Eternal, which is always an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, turns out there's more ways to survive it, and so it's not as big of a deal currently. We see HaverOfFun contesting the remote, looking to find whatever is inside. Another Mausolus that's a Mausolus getting res.
Yeah, Mausolus is such a powerhouse for these kinds of damagey, taggy Wayland decks. One of the things we're really lacking in Standard at the moment, I think, for kill-based Wayland is a good piece of ice that gives tags. As we see the second SSL steal. Wow.
There's a lot of money coming in for the Corp, but also a lot of points. If the NAPD contract is still in archives, Wren has to get it out of the way quickly or lose the game because of it.
Yeah, and with just 6 cards left in R&D, yeah, we get the concession here. It looks like they're just Wren just couldn't find a way to kill through the heartbeat, and eventually ran out of time with the clock that is their deck. Nice little game there. Oh,
Yeah.
we get a little ad for the NBA. Bonus content.
My bad. All
Bonus
right.
content for everyone watching along.
Let's flip the tables. This is the other side of the matchup. Here y'all go.
Awesome. Even more Andromeda. People have been loving this. We have 4 Andromedas, I think, in the tournament right now in the league. Facing off against Spark Agency.
Yeah, this is a real Andromeda hand. This right here. The Chill Gamble into a bunch of sweet econ cards and double account siphon, which could really swing this game early. But both players here looking to drain the other's credits as Spark Agency makes the runner lose a credit whenever an advertisement is rezzed. Wren doing the appropriate thing of politely pausing before first click here to see if HaverOfFun wants to reduce credits at all. Could deny that show gamble.
Yep.
Oh, we go
Looks like
straight
we
for
have
the account siphon.
Damn. Bold account siphon going in, and that's a gold farmer. Exactly 1 credit too many for a Wren to get through.
Yeah, and this is another example of cards that didn't have too much time together in standard, Spark and Gold Farmer, but really play really well together as some of the more powerful corp cards that can remove runner credits. But we do see Wren getting clear up the board here. We're going to see only 1 card played out of the opening Andromeda hand, discarding a bunch and just getting them straight back because they're crowdfundings. No downside to this 9-card starting hand here.
Absolutely. And also amazing card when you're facing off against a white deck like Spark here. So making sure you always have the option to get those 3 runs in, get your crowdfunding backs. This looks like a great start from run side.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting up to that sure gamble might be tricky, but we're gonna. Oh, never mind.
Never mind.
No advertisements yet in evidence for the Spark deck, which is pretty unfortunate.
Yeah.
Do you see a Turtlebacks here, powerful economic card, and that is going to stick on the board.
So it's an expensive one to trash. So definitely something Wren's considering more about it. It'll feed off a bunch of credits to HaverOfFun, who's playing now their first points with friends in high places. Well, first points, I think we've seen 3 already, but yeah, 2 more points with friends in high places.
Yeah, such a powerful card. I remember when this card was printed into standard, pretty universally recognized as one of the most powerful operations of all time at that time, immediately, and really dominated standard for quite some time until balance action was taken. Just 1 influence, 2 cost, ends your turn, but you get to install 2 things from archives. Just let the runner come and trash your stuff and put them straight back for almost no cost. Very, very powerful.
Amazing value. People using it for upgrades, assets, sometimes even ice, whatever you need. The first 9 place is going to put it back on the board.
Now we've got some advertisements as the Spark finally. I'm pretty sure that card is an advertisement. I've forgotten its name. It's the one that gives you a credit first time the runner runs each turn.
It's a tier subscription, and it is an advertisement, yes.
Yeah, so yeah, trying to tax the runner's credits, but with this double crowdfunding Desperado setup and a misbounds to pay trash costs, it's going to be pretty hard to keep run down on creds here.
Yeah, nonetheless, I think the Spark can build a remote that's really, really expensive with a couple of their eyes. The message as well, like the toll booths and the gold farmers and stuff, are very, very hard to, still expensive to face off and all say and run on it. So we'll see if Wren can also find the necessary breakers to get in remotes before HaverOfFun starts pushing agendas.
Yeah, that's something we saw in HaverOfFun's game last week against the really quite terrifying World Tree Woo deck played by Toron. Just the ability of Spark to kind of stay in the game as it went long, even against such a powerful late game deck as World Tree, was quite impressive, I thought. So maybe we shouldn't speak too soon here. This game could still turn around.
Absolutely, yeah. And also the option to find that C-source closed accounts and then kind of crash the runner's economy all the way down. It's definitely something that the runner has to look out for as a way to close out the game for the corp.
Yeah, agreed. But these crowdfundings are just going to keep ticking, and pretty hard short of something like an Arc Lockdown to remove cards from the heap. Pretty hard for HaverOfFun. Maybe a Blacklist? Maybe you play a Blacklist in a deck like this that prevents cards leaving the heap at all. But yeah, pretty tough to ever stop the crowdfundings from ticking in the matchup, I would imagine.
Yeah, Desperate as well is also really helping here. Every time you check something new, you go and trash something new, Desperate is going to help. And we see the first agenda steal and the Aramar triggering up and getting those 2 counters.
We do go down pretty low on credits here to steal it, though, so potentially opportunity for a C-Source with some kind of tag punishment here if HaverOfFun has it available.
Well, except Aramar makes you immune to tags, or at least the first 2, so I think Wren is sitting pretty happily on that one.
That's true, very true. Yeah, the steal, pretty much consequence-free with an Aaron sitting there, feeds you 2 cards, and prevents 2 tags along the way if you happen to have them.
Yeah, such an amazing tech card. Also points, I mean, as it would, because people will understand, it's such a great way to avoid single tag punishment. Doesn't work as well when you're getting tag storms by mutual destruction or tags like that. But when you're only worried about closed accounts, that one's great.
Yeah, another card when it was printed into standard, a lot of, let's say, appropriate and immediate respect for the power level of Aaron, as we see an account siphon push to the gold farmer here.
Yeah.
That's going to be a bit of a swing.
HaverOfFun decking as much as he can.
And the tag's just disappearing thanks to Aaron. Noticeably, we have both account siphon and diversion of funds in this deck. It's one of the things that Criminal gets to do in the format.
Yeah.
Is play up to 6 copies of that very powerful Drain 5 credit effect.
I wouldn't be shocked to see even same old thing to try and get even more of the economic denial that the card can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and the pad taps as well, while going all in on making sure you're richer than the corp.
And that's another Friends in High Places here. So we're still managing to establish a pretty impressive number of assets despite this incredible, inexorable economic advantage from the runner.
Yeah, it's
Nice to
it's
be
not
seen that
only
can be turned into anything.
yeah, it's not only the clicks that the credits are taxed, but also the clicks of having to run all these servers, trashing every single with these one advertisement every time.
Yeah, that's true. A nice pan of wheels would go a long way here, give you those clicks back. But as is, we're just
Absolutely.
fighting assets the hard way.
And Wren just sending a bravado on Gold Farmer just to get this money. The single ice paying off on that front, at least, I'd say.
Mm-hmm.
We finally
We
get
see
to see.
another,
Yep.
yeah, newer card here in Warm Reception. Nothing. Oh, there's a Spin Doctor on the board, so actually you can just get some value out of the D-Res here.
You could also like de-res and re-res on one of your advertisement to drain the corp for 1. All those tier subscription are free to res, so it's just cheeky -1 credit on for your opponent.
Yeah, that's a nice little interaction actually.
It is what's drawing, I think, players and HaverOfFun especially to playing this kind of Spark deck that was kind of weak when it was in standard, but got a few interesting tools in the most recent sets.
And of course, it's the famously the corp building identity with the best haircut.
Yeah, definitely. That's definitely the best haircut I've seen.
I think I've heard tales of people cosplaying as the Spark Agency building at Netrunner tournaments in the past, which not something you often hear about the corporate headquarters the characters, as it were.
Yeah, I'd love to see that actually. So once again, HaverOfFun just trying to deny as many credits as possible. Looks like building a money lead, or at least making sure the runner is not as rich as they can be, is probably the way he's gonna score his agendas in the future.
Yeah, still lots of cards in R&D, and counterpoint to the op game previously. This deck not going through R&D quite as quickly, so still plenty of space to hide the agendas and keep the game going long if that's what Spike wants to do.
Yep. And we see the first eyes on remote servers. So server 20 might be an agenda or maybe some asset that HaverOfFun wants to protect at all costs. The matchup kind of change. Yeah, the matchup kind of change if and when the corp can score an AR enhanced security that would add another additional click and credit tax on every single one of these trash, or at least the first one each turn.
Yeah, that's right. And it seems like wren is not going to get to this server 20 here. Just doing some recon in the chat to figure out when different servers are installed. But yeah, we might get away with a score from behind the ice on server 20. And yes, 20, I'm not misspeaking. That is how many different servers have been installed by the corp in this game.
Yeah.
Just some good old-fashioned... Oh, it was out of the unprotected
Whoa.
server.
Haha.
That's, yeah. And this is now getting checked, but yeah, maybe nothing. Maybe a second agenda, just for the double or nothing. And it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
There you
read
go.
from Ren there.
Oh,
and
wow.
the third
You're putting
copy.
the third one.
Wow. All 3 copies of one agenda enter score areas in the same turn cycle. That doesn't happen very
Yeah.
often.
And now suddenly Ren on game point if they can find Bologna or any other 3-pointers that HaverOfFun's playing.
Yeah, Bologna's presumably the most likely.
Yeah.
Ren also deploying another tech card here, the No One Home. In Standard, a favourite of our host here this evening, who's often trying to persuade people to play it in Standard. Yeah, it's preventing potentially a bunch of tags at once in the event that something like a mid-season replacements were to come down to try and give a lot of tags. No one home given out there.
Definitely a very good one in Eternal. I think we see a lot of tag storm cards that No One Home kind of fights against.
Now we've dropped this medium. We're running R&D, seeing the news hound that we accessed earlier.
Run our
only
current
2
kind of.
counters. Yeah, only 2 counters on the Almakua, which tells you just how many cards Ren has been trashing.
Yeah. Also
Split with his
relevant,
runs, only
the
2 counters.
runner current now fighting for the corp, at least when it comes to the end run on the news hound, kind of stopping the runner from going through.
Yeah, nice little piece of ice in the format when you'd expect every deck to be playing currents and a current to be in play probably the majority of turns in any given game. 2 cost 4 strength and the run sentry with a little tag tacked on. It's powerful little ice.
Absolutely. See, HaverOfFun keeps on digging, trying to find more installable cards, and Ren using the Aramar off turn to trigger the class sack to get as much digging through his deck, through their deck as they can.
Yeah, always an interesting choice with Aaron is at what point do I just use all these counters to draw cards because the game's going to end before I get this many tags. Especially in the NBN matchup, interesting call to make. We see a toll booth raised. Wow, big piece of ice here.
And a working prototype, so not an advertisement, but definitely an economic card that works with all the rezzing that Sparks wants to do.
Also get the tag for the trash.
Yeah. And a account siphon. Ren not worried about the tags here at all. Thanks to Aaron.
Yeah, they're just going to disappear into the ether. We've got a Unity here. We're going to install it for future toll booths potentially. And it looks like, yeah, we're going to save an Aaron counter by removing a tag manually and then using Aaron on the start of the corpse turn. In that cheeky little window when it is the corpse turn, but the corpse turn has not yet begun, as it were, to get the class act trigger.
Yeah. Avoid any potential tag punishment in the corpse turn.
Which probably the best tag punishment at this point of the game is the basic action to trash Aaron Maron.
Yeah, that would be pretty good. We also see once again the not re-education, but the rebirth in the runner's hand when a favorite one for Andromeda players, getting to choose amongst any criminal ID ever.
Yeah, apart from that excellent dress, Andromeda is blank for the whole rest of the game after the first turn, so
Yeah,
may as well switch her out for an identity with some game text. We go again to 419, as we did on the other side of the matchup earlier.
pretty good one, especially when you expect your opponent to install a lot of cards.
We found the Bigotta, so now we can start pressuring this R&D.
Surprisingly, still an expensive break.
Yeah, New Sound really putting its weight here.
Mm.
But the Bravado will help with that.
Oh, and we find the Bellona.
Wow, just first access from R&D. We're setting up there to dig over a few cards over the next couple of turns, but didn't need it.
Yeah,
Just the
that's
agendas.
game. So both of those players were at the bottom of the standing. I think both got swept week 1, so happy to pick up at least one win and get ready to bounce back in the next few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well played to both players. That's like one of my favorite things from playing Eternal is getting to play some of those old cards like Desperado crowdfunding and just running on everything, and it feels so good. Obviously, if you're playing assets, that might be an issue, but well played to both players. All right, we got round 2. Mind you, this is Jai versus Ysengrin. Both of these players are playing, I think, some identities you might be a bit surprised to see in Eternal. This is going to start with Essa versus Skorpios. What do y'all think about this matchup?
It's an
Wow.
interesting one for sure. As at least the version Ysengrin is playing here is not playing any program, so Jai, who's probably looking to reshoot and kind of stop the runner from coming in with their breakers, is going to have a bit of a harder time having to deal with different tools. On the other hand, if they build a tall enough remote or a tall enough server, I guess, Eza kind of is already stumped by their deck building. Would you agree? Say something else, Cobra?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Ysengrin's been a real advocate for Essa in the format for a little while, iterating on various versions of the Essa deck, which has a few powerful kind of redundancy options. You get Amped Up as essentially copies 4 through 6 of Running Hot. You get Brain Cage, which does the same thing as Marrow, so you can make your hand size even bigger. And of course, we get this crucial criminal card in the opening hand here. Titanium Ribs, which lets you choose the cards you take to damage. So that feeling of playing Essa in Standard where you're a little bit out of control, you're going to lose what you lose to core damage and make it work. In Eternal, you don't have to worry about that so much. You choose the cards you want to discard, which does mean, yes, you can trash your Steelskin Scarrings, Strike Funds, I've had Worses at will. Powerful little interaction. In terms of the Scorp matchup, presumably the Essa is on some number of Ashen Epilogue and or Levy AR access to go through the deck twice, given how fast we expect this Essa to whack through their deck with all the Steelskins and I've Worse hits. So that means that the Scorp can carefully choose cards to remove from the game so that they don't have to deal with them the next time round through the deck, which could potentially be quite impactful.
This is going to be great. Also, Skorpios on a 40 card minimum, so we're playing 44 cards. And anytime against Essa with both Running Hot and Amped Up, it's going to be a lot of sabotage. I'm going to throw the clip. Have fun on the commentary. This is going to be pretty sick. Apparently, Jeff in chat says this is a great game, so we're in for a treat.
Nice. Let's see it then.
One of the nice side effects of a tournament format like this is we get to have the players in the chat watching back their own games and getting us hyped for potentially a really fun little matchup here.
Absolutely.
Although the Jeff of the time in the chat and the game chat seems to be a little worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, Jai has been talking about his Scorpio stack, saying that's something he built fairly recently and tested very little. So we'll also see how this matchup's gonna roll. It'll be a very interesting one for sure.
Yeah, that's right. The Skorpios are a real polarizing identity. I think there are those players who remember Scorp very fondly. Patrick Scorpy Sklar of Metropole Grid fame being one of those players, for example. But for others, it's just a pointlessly toxic identity that just occasionally wins the game by default. by removing a breaker from the game. Very strange kind of thing that we don't get in Netrunner so much anymore, but is fun for a little experiment in Eternal.
Yeah, there really is no in between for Skorpios, I guess. Yeah, we see turn 1, Titanium Reaps. We'll see if Jai decides to remove any of these cards from the game. Also, interestingly, Jeff decided not to crash the Steelskins carrying, trying to bait the Skorpios into doing something, removing a card that they're not gonna need later.
And we did remove a Running Hot, which is potentially going to be useful on the deck recycle. But yeah, Steelskin, the better card to keep safe, most likely. And we draw into Clan Vengeance. This is one of, if not the most powerful and important runner card in the Eternal format, I would say.
Yeah, definitely one of the boogeymen of the formats. Stopping any kind of combo from happening in HQ and getting a lot of accesses. Meanwhile, also like triggers off of taking core damage, so works really well with the as ability.
Yeah, and we see 2 copies here for Jeff. Giant, meanwhile, doesn't worry too much about all this self-damage that the runner is doing and just scores a hostile takeover. Just good old-fashioned Netrunner.
Yeah, Skorpios is one of the few scoring corps that we'll see, I think. Not looking to combo off or kill the runner, but just trying to find the avenue to score the agendas. And wow, we see already 1 point in the bin. So Jai is looking like he has a rough hand for sure.
Yeah, I didn't actually see where that sabotage went from the core damage on the first turn.
Oh, right. That's where the cards. That's how the cards end up in archives. It wasn't a discard. That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's looking at the Eternal cards that Essa plays, you start to think, well, Z gets to play the like choose 0 and damage, gets to play Clan Vengeance to reward Z for that damage, but also just gets to be Essa and do the sabotage into the bargain.
Yeah.
Chat reckons about from top of the deck, which would make sense.
That makes sense, yeah. Icing up archives, trying to stop the runner from going in, but a double Clan Vengeance hitting the board, getting loaded at the same time with the single play of the Running Hot.
We get 4 clicks now. We got Scorp just taking that Running Hot out, makes sense. And got some drawing up. We see the amped up there, the other Running Hot equivalent available if Jeff really wants to take a big turn here. But probably going to space out that core damage to get more of the Essa triggers.
Yeah, that makes sense. Trying to get as many sabotage and Clan Vengeance as you can. The way the single runner archives gets to win the game.
And we see a couple of important cards drawn there at the end of the turn. The Rumor Mill, a very powerful current, the only 3-point current, I believe. Maybe you can correct me again, but I'm pretty sure about that one.
I think you're correct, yes.
Excellent. Which just blanks basically half of the good corp cards in the game. Any unique asset or upgrade loses all text while we remember those in play. And also we see Ban card drawn, a newer card that people will be familiar with from Standard. Works very well with all the self-damage effects, double self-damage benefits that you have available in a deck like this. And also just gets through ice in a format where lots of corps are not actually playing that many ice. So sometimes Ban card can be all you need to get through. Although, as Jai points out, it is, for technical reasons, a bit of a pain in the matchup, as you have to resolve the subroutines one at a time and have Scorp decide whether they want to remove the card that was trashed.
That's a little unfortunate, yes, but that's something that playing in paper would help a lot, but definitely doing it on JNet makes all those automated buttons not as good.
Yeah, I think JNet comes out on top for convenience, as we'll see a particular deck later that would be a real nightmare to play in paper.
Oh yeah, absolutely. See Jeff setting up more and more, taking more and more core damage, and also having the Clan Vengeance go up. I wonder if he's gonna blow one of them early just to hurt Jai's kind of setup, and then load up the second one for a bigger turn, or if they're both gonna hit like 5 or 6 and then find as many cards as it possibly can.
Yeah, it's a really interesting balance as we see Jeff hovering over the Clan Vengeance here, considering. When you're playing against a deck that isn't cerebral imaging and therefore has a normal hand size, once you get past 5 or 6, the number of counters on Conventions is kind of irrelevant. It just is a hand wipe. So in some ways, you're incentivized to fire it off before you end up taking. Yeah, you end up with too many redundant counters on the Conventions, I guess.
Yeah.
Right after this Rashida could be an interesting time to pop it. Just clear out some of those cards that get drawn immediately. And we do see the pause button used. And we use both clear or 6.
Yeah. I was about to say something interesting about looking at the replays that we can see the runner's mouse movement hovering on the card. So we could kind of expect something like that, or we could see at least Jeff thinking about whether or not to fire those club vengeances.
Yeah, it's a really disruptive choice here made by Jeff, but also a committal one. That's now 2 of them in the bin, one of them out of the game because of Skorp. There's one more in the deck, but Jai, in theory, can play without fear of Kind Vengeance for a few turns here, and unless there's 6 points in archives already. Also, might feel okay about that exchange.
Definitely. Also, very good point about removing one of them is because maybe Jeff wanted to use 2 at the same time exactly because of that reason. So one gets to stay in the heap, gets to be shuffled later on. So maybe considering that he wanted to use both at the same time for that reason, not getting all of them removed one at a time by the Skorpios ability.
Yeah, I can't imagine that Jeff has played against Skorp too much in the past 3-4 years since whenever it left standard. But he's making some heads-up plays here.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Jai keeps on pushing, puts an upgrade in the remote, which kind of is going to probably bait the rumor mill unless Jeff really is cared about an agenda that he can't contest and therefore doesn't want his current to get wiped really quickly by that score.
Yeah, we'd assume the most likely agenda for this deck to be playing is the one with the identity in the name, STS drone deployment. Is very powerful effect in standard anyway when you get to Treasure Breaker. Paired with its namesake identity, where you get to remove that breaker from the game entirely, it can do a little re-education impression of being a 5/2 that just ends the game on score.
Absolutely, yeah. And we see also the Desperado hitting the bean. Probably not the best console in the matchup, but it's interesting that Eza doesn't play his own Marrow, which is another way to get more core damage and more hand size to get even more core damage later on.
Yeah, again, one of the interesting wrinkles of the redundant card pool, right? You get Brain Cage and Marrow, so you could play both to have a whole bunch of hand size. Or you just play the one that doesn't take up your console slot and free up that slot for another powerful card. Interesting choice.
Definitely. We also see a Jackson Hour hit in the board. That's a really good one to shuffle back a bunch of agendas. So I'm assuming Jai is going to use that to get some of the important card back in the deck, but also, 3 unseen cards. So maybe as many points as he can to avoid Jeff stealing them.
Notably, no further advancements on this 2 advanced card from the turn before last. So, interesting question what that is here. You'd sort of assume that a 5/3 would have got scored. It could potentially be Jai trying to cook this SDS for a program to turn up, in which case I think he might be disappointed. I don't know if Jeff is running any programs at all. Certainly we haven't seen any yet. Or possibly it could be an NGO front or a BioVault even. Not sure what else that advanced card is likely to be.
Ooh, and we had Engram Flash. That goes from revealing the grip to dealing damage straight up. Because of
really kind of strange little interaction here between 3 cards here with Flush, Banker, and Skorp all together. Doing some strange things, but the end result is we'll get to remove a rumor mill from the game here, and then fire a steel skin and move on through.
Skorpios getting to remove the current, so Jai is really worried a little bit about the rumor mill. We see an ice wall. Wow, very classic piece of ice there.
Yeah, just cheap gear checks, as in any, from Corset only to draft to standard all the way up to Eternal. Just a cheap gear check ice is sometimes the thing you need.
Absolutely. See what looks like our first copy of DDoS. So one other way that Jeff has to get through these eyes without using Banker, and also a way to use in conjunction with Banker to get through to ice at the same time. Obviously, you have to trash it before you encounter the ice, so it's unlikely that Skorpios will let you keep it in the heap and then shuffle it back later.
Yeah, but a pretty powerful way to, in partnership with Banker, more or less guarantee getting into 2-ice server as long as the outermost is unresed.
And it doesn't look like Jai is running any way to kind of pre-res those kind of eyes. So it's a combo that's looking likely to help Jeff get into and remote any server rather in the near future.
We do see Jeff down to 3 hand size now, so starting to get a little low. Going to be wanting to close this game out sooner rather than later, I'd imagine. And also choosing to discard the Rumour Mill, which is interesting, given that Scorp respected it enough to remove it from the bin. Not holding on to that, even though it could be used to prevent, for example, a Jackson Howard shuffling away some agendas.
Yeah. Also worth mentioning, I don't think I can't remember if we've seen Skorpios remove something last turn, but cards that get discarded at the end of the turn because of maximum hand size do not get trashed from hand, which means they don't trigger the Skorpios ability, which means Jai didn't have the chance to remove the current from the game in that scenario.
Yeah, that's right. Similar to the way if you discard a Steel Skin or Strike Fund from your hand at the end of turn, you don't get the benefit.
Exactly.
But now we've further advanced the card in the remote up to 4 and installed a second card with it. But now the DDoS gets to spring the trap here. And pretty well guaranteed getting into this ice with the I've had worse in hand, meaning that we can take up to 5 damage.
That's a lot.
From Banker. Yeah. At least 5, I should say.
We see a border control.
Border control is going to beat this interaction, at least for 1 click. DDoS lasts for the whole turn, I believe?
Yes, that's correct.
Wow. Yeah, so yeah, so we are going to be able to, in theory, get back in here. And as we're not Orb, this border control isn't sadly going to turn magically into another piece of ice.
Yeah, Orb would have been an interesting one because if you install a piece of ice, I don't know if you get to res it thanks to the Orb ability because of DDoS. So that's kind of a rule question that I would have to ask someone more expert than me. But we don't have to dig into it for now.
That is a great question. Yeah, I will ruminate on that one.
We see a Marcus Batty.
Marcus Batty, yeah, powerful rig shooter card lets you just resolve a subroutine, not unlike the currently banned in standard Nanocivic Grid. Just resolving subroutines is a powerful thing to be able to do when the runner can't break them. In this case, I'm pretty sure it fires a net damage subroutine. Is that right? Depends exactly when we've used this and.
By the arrow, I think we are past the encounter, which means we are not in the Banker encounter anymore, which would mean that it would have fired an Ender on and saved the server that Jai has there. But Jeff guessed correctly or rolled the die well.
Jeff, just a pure gamer, winning the side game, but now seeing the SDS and a second Marcus Batty to crash, at least to get something from the exchange. But maybe impossible for Jeff to ever steal STS drone deployments. You know, I was talking so much about the other aspect of that card's text, I forgot that it has a steal cost.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about it.
If Jeff is indeed on programless ISA, then these just get scored, I guess.
You know what? I'm guessing the Light the Fire that we'd seen it last week in Jeff's deck is exactly in there for that reason.
Yeah, great shout. And we've got to find it somehow. We're going to find it by taking a bunch of extra clicks, it looks like.
Yeah, that's a good way for Eza to kind of dig through their deck and find the cards needed in the moment. Just get more clicks and draw.
Just like in standard, border control denies Light the Fire. The best tool against that card. Potentially really locking up this SDS score.
Yeah.
So we're going to R&D to try and find points another way.
We have 13 cards in archives currently, so good chance we find something there as well. Maybe one more Jackson, maybe more points.
Yeah, only 9 of Jai's points are locked behind the SDS unstealable text, so plenty more. Another 7 still in the game, unaccounted for. So we do see that Light the Fire drawn with Inject.
Yeah. Great card when you don't have programs. It's just draw 4
That's
for
right.
1.
1 cost draw 4. VRK no downside.
Yeah. Better faction.
Yeah. Well, arguable.
Arguable, yes.
Certainly, probably more Shaper cards by number being played in this tournament than any other faction, for a particular reason that we'll come to later.
Yeah, despite only there being one paper ID. And you see,
still 2 standoffs and another
Yeah.
SDS that we can't steal.
I wonder if we'll see Jeff firing off the Clump Vengeance here, or if we're gonna get hit by a Hunter Seeker. It looks like
We see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, if you
Mhm.
trash the brain cage, then that's just brain death for the runner here.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, there we go. We see Jeff looking at the archives and seeing all 3 Hunter Seekers. So it was a
And
bunch
now
of ice.
realizing, that he was safe, maybe didn't need to pop that Clan Vengeance. But pretty heads up to be thinking of it at that spot, to be honest. Personally, having just started on standoff, so I wouldn't have immediately thought of that. As it's only a 0-point agenda, sometimes you forget it counts as a steal.
Definitely, yes. Also, Jeff commenting on the Hunter Seekers as well. I wonder if Jai is running any sort of like archives recursion, such as archive memories or something like that, to get back one of the important tools in the right moment.
Yeah, at the very least, we have Jackson Howard, so they could be coming back in the slow way.
Yeah. Hunter Seeker card that you really want to fire in the right moment, but sometimes just having it in circulation is enough to find one when you need it later on. Also, really important, the single copy of, or at least the first copy of Levy AR access in Jeff's hand. Something that's gonna shuffle most of everything that's left in the heap. So most of the cards in Hazard's deck to kind of refuel the second go again of the deck, even though you don't get to take as many core damages as you did in the first one.
Yeah, it's a choice to spend 1 more influence rather than take the downside of losing 5 cards when you ash an epilogue. Just really wanting to get as many of those self-damage engine cards back through a second time as you can.
We only have 1 Clump Vengeance left, I think, because of the Skorpios ability, but that's enough to find even more points and win the game, even though we're only on 1 and we don't get to steal the SDS.
Yeah, I mean, again, we've got to find whatever those other points are. Presumably something like an SSL or another powerful 5/3.
It could be. I think Adziev also makes sense. Deal damage, remove
Yeah, that's true. We see the levy fired here. Again, JNet proving its convenience. Just a nice simple click here to do a whole bunch of shuffling and redrawing.
Absolutely. Fortunately, a lot of cards that Jeff found here are core damage ones that maybe he wasn't looking to play as quickly yet, but we'll see what his line ends up being.
We get to price into kind of nothing here. Just redundant copies of the Ghost Tongue.
Was a really mean interaction with the prize here, where Skorpios gets the first say on what gets removed from the game before the runner gets to install them.
That is brutal.
Yeah. Not being very important here, but that's definitely an interaction that Skorpios loves.
Yeah, if this was a deck with actual breakers, that might just mean you really had to think about never playing your copies of the prize.
Yeah.
Really interesting, bizarre matchup, the way in which some of each player's cards are kind of blanked by what the other player's deck is doing. and others of them are made more powerful.
That is the beauty of Eternal. Like stuff like this doesn't happen in Standard, but it's like all of your cards kind of change face and shape depending on who you're playing against.
Yeah, and every matchup is really technical, often in ways you wouldn't necessarily have expected, which can make it a kind of a punishingly difficult format to play sometimes. But if you, make some good reads and some heads-up plays about what your opponent's deck is doing or what you expect it to be doing, as we've seen both players make here, you can really get rewarded.
Yeah, absolutely. Feels very rewarding for the players, I think. Getting to play this kind of very dynamic matchups that change from week to week.
Yeah, for my own experience of the format is that it's a kind of real intense learning curve that I have to, if I want to actually win games of Eternal, I have to just pick a deck and play it a bunch before I'm kind of coming close to being able to win consistently, even with the very best decks, because, yeah, even small errors can really multiply. And now we're seeing almost the whole of the grip get discarded here, down to the one remaining hand size after 7 core damage taken.
Yeah.
And Jai's been
down
really
to-
taking it slow these last couple of turns, slow rolling this STS, just waiting for the next agenda to jam.
Yeah, also getting hit by a big clan vengeance kind of put a stop it in his plans a little bit.
That's true, yeah. It's a good way to kill the mood.
Yeah. On the plus side, Jai is practically immune to Engram Flash right now. Oh, sorry, Jeff, rather.
True, yeah. Don't have any cards in your grip, you can just run right through it.
Yeah. We'll see if ooh, kind of
Wow.
fetching. Yeah.
Reveal but decline to raise a Tithonium with
I don't
2
think
mana.
I don't think Jai has enough money. Though
Right.
very important to say that Tucana finds it nice and reses it, which would get around the DDoS.
Yeah, so we're sort interestingly choosing to keep the 1 point from hostile rather than forfeit it here. But in exchange, we're having that ice unresed on archive, so DDoS Bankar can still get us in. And Jai now reflecting on this in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. With only 10 cards left in R&D, though, you kind of have to keep every point and trying to figure out if you can actually score to 7 before you deck out. Definitely a tough choice for Jai in that scenario.
Yeah, this is really going to come down to the wire here about where these last few points end up and whether Jai can find his way to 7. Presumably it's, well, let's see, 40 card ID, 18 points, so 5/5/3 is 3 hostile, you'd assume?
That's what I expect, yes.
Yeah. But if the third hostile's in the bin already from sabotage or what have you, then forfeiting that hostile would be a pretty big cost. You'd have to then score a third 5/3 to win the game.
Firing off a Raindrops Catstone on the Engram Flash, just baiting Jai to say event and then drawing off of it.
Yeah, very nice. And now we see the archives push here, popping the DDoS, and we've got quite a few cards to get through the second ice with Bankar.
Yeah, Habit Wars also making exchanging for 3 additional cards on single net damage. We're on hand size 0 though, so no more core damage unless that wins Jeff's the game on the spot.
Dead to a stiff breeze here. Oh wow, okay, that's a lot of points in archives. 9 full points, but 6 of them unstealable, plus a bonus standoff. And the SSL brings Jai up to 4 here. Sorry, brings Jeff up to 4, but it's going to fund Jai potentially for the rest of the game. Jeff just going to make use of the DDoS here to try and win on R&D, and he finds it. Wow.
Good game. Really good one. Really down to the wire at the end. Very well played from both players.
Yeah, really tense. I mean, that was going to get dicey just for whether Jai had enough agendas left in R&D to win the game at all. But yeah, in the end, just the rips off R&D as we see. That's the second runner game we've seen. Just rip 1 card off R&D, win the game. Not too bad.
Yeah.
Classic Netrunner.
For a deck with no breakers, that was an incredibly wild matchup. Well played to both players. All right.
Are we
got
heading into game 2?
Game 2. This is Cerebral Imaging. versus Andy. There's a whole bunch of CI decks out there in Eternal. Do y'all want to quickly just recap for those who are not too familiar with CI and what CI can do potentially in this format?
Oh boy, yeah, Warlock, you have the pleasure.
Surely. So yeah, CI, as people know, might not know, but yeah, the ID HP ID that 4515 that says your maximum hand size, or maximum hand size is the same as your credit count currently. So if you have a bunch of credits, your hand size gets big. If you have a very low amount of credits, your hand size goes very down quickly, very quickly. Yeah. What CI usually tries to do is get as many credits as possible, fill its hand with as many cards as they need, and then try to combo off in one of many ways. We've seen in the format, in the tournament already, a scoring CI that's piloted by Jeff here. So we kind of expect this CI to go to 7 points through a different kind of combos that involve efficiency commentate usually, and all the shipper from Kaguya or business as usual kind of cheat around the constriction that efficiency committee puts on the corpse click. We've seen a combo kill version that play brain rewiring and then get the hand size from runner all the way down to 1, or not hand size but cards in hand, and then try to deal as much damage as they need to go over this single card, be it through contract killer or the one we've seen, I think, Toron playing, which involves Jupiter Grid and defective brain chips. And then there's a series of different things that CI can do, kind of try and win the game in different ways. Over the years, we've seen CI go to infinite amount of credits and then kind of have an infinitely large hand size. Some CIs go around using a combo that drains all the runners' click all the way to 0, so they can't even make a run anymore. CI can do a bunch of wacky stuff, and but we'll see like Jeff's one probably try and attempt to score as quickly as it can.
For those who played back in the day when cerebral imaging was legal and standard, it wasn't uncommon to go to a website like StimHack and there would just be articles that say like, this is your hand in CI, you have 16 credits, you have 14 cards in hand, how do you win on this board state? And sometimes like the sort of math and calculations you had to do to figure out how to score at 7 points in a single turn would take you like 5 to 10 minutes. So holding 17 cards, as you'll see in any amount of Netrunner, whether it's Eternal or Standard, opens up wild possibilities. And I do think Jeff is going to score out. Jeff seems like a score out CI player. Awesome. I do think this deck got a bit stronger with the last set. Like this is the Eternal versus Standard thing, or when new cards come out. With your digital life, cerebral imaging is very hard to pressure them economically when they're on a lot of cards in hand. And of course, I think we're going to see Wage Workers just be absolutely busted in most CI combo lists. That card is really, really good.
Absolutely. The joke is that every time a new set comes out, at least one card is a CI card.
Yeah.
In some way. Everything that says draw and make credits kind of instantly goes into CI in some way. And now they have a lot of choice right now, so maybe not. You only get to play the best of these kind of cards, but it's hard not to print a card that isn't good in CI.
Awesome. With that, I'll throw myself on mute. Good luck.
Wicked, yeah. I mean, in rebutting without rehearsal, as you were saying, the Automata Initiative, really big pack for CI, giving us YDL and Wage Workers, but in rebutting without rehearsal, and a Knuckles little card, business as usual, just a quiet little upgrade for the Eternal CI deck, which was already often playing, or for one of the decks at least, was often playing Shipment from Kaguya, a card that just is one mode of business as usual, and now you just get to, as a bonus, remove a bunch of Amakura counters or similar at the same time while you're advancing 2 cards in the middle of your combo. So yeah, sweet little upgrade there for the deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jeff is playing a scoring deck.
Yeah, even the chance of playing like 6 of these of the same effect is the kind of thing that these extremely fast combo decks kind of want to play. The consistency of finding the card you need as soon as you need it is great.
Yeah, really nice. So yeah, last week we saw Jeff employ a sort of fairly classic, if I remember rightly, or maybe he actually just did it the quote-unquote fair way by fast advancing 3 different agendas on 3 different turns.
I think that's what happened, yes.
Tech in play, yeah. But Jeff generally a proponent of the 2+5 approach to scoring out a CI. If you can't quite make the 7-point combo work because it's too expensive, requires too many particular cards, or the runner has particular tech, You score a 2-point agenda that's going to give you some kind of advantage, and then you score the remaining 5 in one turn after that.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing Jai one of the most important card in the matchup right now, which is Employee Strike. When you get the CI go to a very large amount of cards in hand, and then you blank their ID and make them discard at the end of a turn if they can't find the counter current to play against, is definitely something that can win you the game on the spot.
Yeah, that's in some ways a small advantage that the scoring CIs actually have is if your deck is built already to score agendas out of hand, then if they play the current and you don't have the counter current, well, you can just score an agenda. Maybe it's not exactly when you would have liked to score that agenda, but it beats discarding your whole hand.
Absolutely here, and we see Jai setting up more economy, more draw, and dealing with the Jackson Arrow before Jeff gets to draw a bunch of cards through that. He's definitely going to find more economic operations that are going to help him keep the cards in hand.
And we're seeing a pretty slow start for CI. So CI is one of those decks where when it's going, it seems like it just has to be the best deck ever made, right? You just get to have all your cards on all your credits in the world's your oyster. But sometimes you have a start like this where you don't draw the early economy, and that means you also don't have a sizable hand size, and it's hard for you to res ice because then your hand size will be even smaller. And yeah, potentially, if Jai goes for this account siphon this turn, for example, you could really compound that pressure.
Yeah, it becomes a very slippery slope once you get to too low of a hand size to bounce back. But YDL is going to probably help Jeff kind of stabilize if he finds it later on. Yeah,
usually Violet level clearance is the card you want to really start your game off. Nice and easy 5 cost to play, perfect for the start of the game. Nets you 3 credits and draws you 4. And we see a Vacheron here, another standard banned card, and a Point in Eternal, which is technically now just vanished from the game for 4 turns and is going to arrive in Jai's score area later on. But yeah, stealing it here is very nice for Jai, going to make it a bit easier to get to those 7 in a reasonable amount of time, because this Vacheron will actually enter the score area probably before Jeff's able to win the game.
Yeah, really good one for Jai to score that early on. It's also something that Jeff is looking to score if the game goes long. So removing one agenda is also slowing down the combo, even though 3 points in 4 turns are definitely the important part here.
Absolutely. So still just using the basic action card on the CI side, clicking for credit and also for a hand size is a slightly better basic action than other corps have, but it's still not where you want to be.
Definitely a bit of a slow start from the CI here. Trying to find its footing, and Jai is not letting go of the gas. The boomerang on HQ and the account siphon coming in. There we go. Trying to put a complete nail in the coffin of this game.
Yeah, that's often the way with Eternal, as we've talked about, that you have games that kind of spin out into strange, unusual interactions that you've never seen before of a large number of turns, as we saw with Esso versus Skorp, or you have the one player stumbles and the other player just kicks them while they're down. When you have the most powerful cards in the game available to you, turning a small advantage into a big one is one of the more straightforward things you can do.
Looks like Jai isn't even considering removing the tags and just going straight in, trying to find the points that he thinks are in HQ because of the slow start from the CI, and not being bothered about having to float tags.
Yeah, just as a click for a credit and a hand size is a little upgraded basic action. Click and 2 credits and -2 hand size to trash a resource is kind of a downgrade on the basic action for CI. You wouldn't expect them to do that very often.
Yeah, another card from Liberation that found itself in the CI decks is this kind of corporate hospitality. Gaining money, drawing cards, and then getting a card back from the bin. Oftentimes one of those economic operations that gets you going even further.
Yeah, almost the ideal opening for CI these days is Ice HQ, draw a card, Violet level, turn 1, and then turn 2, just corporate hospitality straight into Violet level again. Get you up on credits and cards. And
very powerful.
Off to the races, but sadly not the game that Jeff has had here.
Yeah, and the account siphon in Jai's hand is kind of looks like it's going to tell another different story. Going to remove more and more money from the corp's bank account.
Yeah, a bit of a still got all these situation with still having the 2 copies of Employee Strike, the political operative in hand, a lot of 2 political operatives as well, in fact. So a lot of other powerful tech cards for the matchup that maybe just not going to be needed because this powerful 3-point account siphon is just going to get the job done. If Jeff can't draw some your digital lives, I don't know if anything else gets him out of this really.
Also, amongst all the powerful cards that Jai has in hand, I like the Mutual Favor. It's like one of those all-time good cards that it's not like shining amazingly. It's not very bright, but it's one of those cards that always consistently okay in every criminal deck since it was printed.
Yeah, it's a nice one. It's one of those cases where rather than being redundancy on an effect, it's just a straight upgrade on special order. You know, that's not an effect you ever need more than 3 copies of. In Eternal, you're probably not playing more than 1 or 2. But just having one that's just straightforwardly better than the one we're used to from the core set days is a nice little upgrade.
Gatekeeper getting rezzed, draining even more of Jeff's credit count. Also something that in a turn is not going to deal particularly well with Omakua, which we kind of expect in an Andromeda list, even though it is 1 point. So maybe Jai decided to play something else with that point. It looks like it's there. We see the Mutual Favor tutoring for it and then installing it right away, getting ready to deal with the Gatekeeper in a matter of turns.
Yeah, so we see 3 points on account siphon, 1 on the turtle, 1 on the moose, and 1 on the employee strike here. I think we've only seen 6 so far.
If that adds up to 6, it's because employee strike is 2 points.
There we go. Yeah, you got me again. So we know all of Jeff's points. And you'd probably assume employee strike. Yeah, maybe you wouldn't. The criminal current we saw earlier is another option for the current Villa runner. But yeah, Jeff's got greater worries than what exact points is my opponent playing here.
Yeah. If Jeff can't find an economic operation soon, looks like the deck is not going to go very far. And we are over installing an ice on HQ after rezzing it and losing 3 hand size. We end up having to change the ice because Omakua just deals with the Gatekeeper so fast. That's terrible news for the corp player here.
It is, yeah. I mean, I wonder, I don't know if you have a read on how salvageable this game is. Let's say that Jeff gets to the YDL next turn or even the turn after. Is it really too late, or do we have a shot at making it back in here?
I think CI only needs about 12 credits to fire off a 5-point combo, and YDL kind of gets you there. So I think CI is just a couple of very good draws from being in a stable situation, although the account siphon in Jai's hand is definitely something that threatens that. If Jai hadn't found a second copy of account siphon, I think the game would be much more salvageable, and these 2 points really hurt.
Yeah, that's a smart little run there to archives. Jeff's had to do a lot of discarding, and the points aren't very useful to him in hand in his current position. So yeah, nice little find there. And now considering going to R&D to just have yet another rip off the top for the 7. Can we get there?
We've seen almost all of the games end on random R&D access so far this week, and so it wouldn't have been crazy to end up that way. Even though the veteran is still on 1 point, on 1 counter rather, so currently worth no points. You see the DLC.
Level clearance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bouncing back up, 8 cards in hand, 8 credits, ready to fire 1 off again next turn, hopefully bounce back.
Yeah, we're just about halfway through the R&D as well, so odds of having found a YDL by now, optimistic, let's say.
I wonder if Jai is playing any other tech into CI or if it's just account siphon. I know some people are including CBI raid these days as a way to reset the whole CI tempo and then trying to find the cards you need on R&D, maybe force them to shuffle with stuff like Keyhole and such.
Some people, yes. You may have played that card against me in our Eternal League game a couple of days
Yeah,
ago, and
that might have happened.
Axu played it against me the week prior. So yeah, I'm well familiar, I'm afraid. Yeah, very powerful card. It creates another quite uncomfortable JNet interface problem where you have to put your whole hand as CI of maybe like 20 cards on top of R&D in the right order. That could be a long one. Sometimes takes even longer than resolving a bacterial programming.
Yeah. And we
But
see,
anyway, yeah.
we see a Vacheron getting stolen. So now the clock's on. Jeff has 4 turns to win the game, or Jai kind of wins just by virtue of it ticking down.
Yeah, and discarding the employee strike here has got to be pretty scary for Jeff here. It means you know the runner has another copy. That's not a card you're going to discard in the matchup without further access to it.
And we've only a drafter protecting HQ. I think we'll see the account siphon flying in, kind of stopping Jeff's plan. Jai's only worried about slowing the game down enough that the Vacheron becomes actual points.
We see another alarm clock here. There was an alarm clock in, I believe it was HaverOfFun's Andromeda earlier. A nice little Liberation Cycle card that's just slotting into criminal decks, just giving you that click efficiency that in a format of this power level, just having a bonus run on your turn can really make the difference.
Pretty good, especially with Desperado kind of making you a single credit every time you make a successful run. The alarm clock just kind of translates into 1 more credit if the board states permits it.
And in this case, speaking of HQ runs, we've finally opted to land the second siphon. And they're stealing just to 7 without even having to untick the third Vacheron. So it was an R&D rip in a strange kind of way.
Yeah,
that ended the game after all.
Surgical precision from Jai, keeping the corp down every turn and then finding all the points necessary to win.
Yeah, that's just classic criminal gameplay.
Indeed.
Well played to both players. Trading, it seems, in week 2, that was a rough CI game. You're clicking for credits. That can't feel good. But yeah, Jeff's in chat saying the criminal matchup is not always that bad, but that did not look like it spun up. Well played to both. Mind you,
Very well played.
These are the results from week 1, so we'll show you at the end of this the stream. We have, I believe, 4 more games to show today where the standings ended up. But both of those players are comfortably now in the middle of the pack, which is probably not a bad spot to be. Jeff says, sniping corporate hospitality took me out of the game. Yeah, that's a huge card for sure. All right, we got 2 more rounds. If I'm not mistaken, Warlock, you have to dodge out at this point, huh?
Yes. I'll let you 2 continue the commentary. I'm sure you'll do amazing work. But yeah, I have to dodge it. Thank you, everybody, for having me, and hopefully you keep looking at the stream because more games are coming up, and the next few are very wild. So look forward to them.
Thanks for joining us. Great commentary.
Thank you too.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
So again, if you're just tuning in, welcome. This is Eternal Super League Week 2. Just to re-rack really quickly, we have 9 Netrunner players who have been playing the game for different levels of time, playing Eternal, which is the format in which you can play mostly every card from the history of the game. Now, there are a couple banned cards for obvious reasons. So you'll figure this out the more you look at things. But there's also a point system. So if you want to play a playset of either of these cards in any of your decks, it'll cost the amount of points in the bracket. And each deck has 7 points it can spend. I believe most decks do spend all 7 points. Some potentially spend 6. But it's a powerful format which allows you to revisit or play with old cards and see how they interact with some of the newer cards. High-level power format, that shouldn't be a surprise when your toolbox gets that big. Things get very punchy very quickly. By the way, my name is Andre from the Metropolitan Grid. I go by he, him. Excited to be here streaming some Eternal Super League. And I'm joined by Cobra Bubbles. Cobra, how's it going?
Yeah, going good. Having fun so far. Some fun little games. Yeah, fun to be on the mic with you talking about Eternal. For people may or may not be aware that the first time Andre and I met in person was over a game of Eternal, a slightly infamous game.
Yeah, I got. Oh man, what a rough start. So,
which is one of the reasons that some of those cards are on the ban list on the runner side there.
Yeah, up here I figured out about these really quickly.
2 of them we didn't even play.
Yeah,
got 3 cards banned. Only played 1 of the 3. Impressive.
That's super.
But that might be a story for another time.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. We're gonna be jumping in again. We have 2 more rounds. All these games, these are not live games. These are recorded from an asynchronous league because we have a bunch of players from different time zones. So they play their games streams throughout the week, and then they record the VODs, the runner records their side, and then gets uploaded here. So we're going to be diving in. I want to say, as a player of Eternal, I am not super experienced at Eternal. I know the cards because I played back in the day, so I'm going to be representing every person who might have some questions to ask. This is a matchup between Toron and Off 1515. Notably, Off 1515 had the bye week last week, so we did not get to see their gameplay, but we did get to see Toron's list, and it's a bit hard to make out right now, but that deck is 125 cards in Cabanessa Wu. What can you talk about this Cabanessa Wu deck off the top? Because we got to see it last week, and it was one of my favorite decks to watch in the format so far.
Yeah, this is quite the place to jump in. It's a very particular kind of deck, should we say. It's not too unfamiliar in basic principle to people potentially who've been playing for a few months at least, because the core card in this deck is the World Tree.
Yeah.
Which was played out of Arasana in Standard somewhat prolifically last summer, particularly by the tiebreakers. But it's even better out of Cabanessa Wu, who is a banned runner identity. He was banned almost immediately after the printing of World Tree.
Yep.
For this exact reason, that you consistently put any kind of program you like into play, for one cheaper no less, from your deck, and it will go away at the end of turn. But Shape has a lot of ways to mitigate that, either by searching self-modifying code to search for it, the program you actually want, or by selling it to the World Tree, by using symbol chip to throw it away and bring it back. Lots of ways to get around that Cabanessa Wu downside. But in short, if you can be short about a deck that's 125 cards, what this deck is going to be doing is assembling at least one World Tree as early as possible, and then on every run, searching through this large deck, which is full of both value pieces and basically every tech card available to the runner in the format. Which there are many, and they are very powerful. Once it's figured out what the opponent is trying to do, it's going to assemble some number of cards that are probably going to completely lock the corp out of the game entirely. Pretty hard to find any corp strategy that can't be defeated by, let's say, a combination of 2 to 3 particular runner tech cards. And this is the best deck at finding those cards. And because, you just get the click I have World Tree button on your ID, it's going to assemble them pretty consistently.
Yeah, and it also sets up quickly. We'll look at cards like Hyperdriver. You can get those out early, and these just give you 7-click turns, and from there, setting up is really quickly. So the big question is, what cards are we going to produce from our deck to deal with the corporation here? This is Industrial Genomics. It's a Jinteki ID. It was the first ID where archives really mattered, if I'm not mistaken. And there's some actually very powerful combo decks you can do in IG in the modern Eternal format that, again, I think we'll see whether Off 15 and 15 is playing these. In short, the text says that the trash cost of all cards, whether they're installed or not, is increased for every face down card in archives. Now, it might not be this deck, but importantly, there's cards that just allow you to add so many cards from R&D into archives. I'm not sure, is Power Shutdown eroded at this point in Eternal?
So Power Shutdown uses the updated NSG wording.
So it has a limit.
So it works slightly differently within the rules.
Okay.
But it doesn't have the limit that the FFG errata put on it. As I recall, that card was errated for balance by FFG because FFG had a sort of phobia of banning cards. So they errated it so that you couldn't trash any number of cards from the top of R&D, which is what that card does functionally in Eternal. The bit about trashing runner cards is sort of flavor text.
Yeah.
NSG, not a fan of functional errata as a general rule. So since Power Shutdown had already rotated, I believe, by the time NSG took custody of the game, it was just changed back to a more rules functional version of its original text. So yes, if you want to, you can, as soon as the runner's made a successful run, you can Power Shutdown for as many cards as there are in R&D, put them all in the trash.
And that is going to be a problem.
So there's two kinds of IG decks in Eternal at the moment, primarily, that I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is a grinder kill deck, one of the more powerful Jinteki kill decks in the format, that basically just puts cards like Bladderwort or Bioethics Association, Reaper Function, just assets that do net damage on the table, and puts a bunch of cards in archives so that those cards are nigh impossible for the runner to trash because they have trash costs of 8 to 10 or more.
Yeah, very big.
And then just slowly kills the runner by having a number of those assets on the table at the same time, so that at the start of the corpse turn they take a ton of damage.
Do you know the name of the card that prevents you from drawing? I don't know if that's going to be huge in this matchup, but there's like a 5 trash cost card that ends up being like a really negative snowball for runners.
Yeah, it's Genetics Pavilion is the
that's
kind of thing you're thinking of, which says that runners can't draw more than 2 cards a turn, so that can really lock them in once their hand's being attacked at the start of the corpse turn. Then they start their turn, they can only draw twice to recover, And that if that gets res with a couple of bioethics with an IG with full archives, you're dead real quick.
And I think the other
then,
version of IGs that I've seen of, at least at like Worlds
Yeah.
a couple of years ago when we played back in 2023, if they're getting all their cards into their archives, they'll end up putting like a Lacosta on the table. And then I think it's Hades Fragment or Hades Shard, whichever the corp one is, stops them from going from like flatlining, from decking out. And then they can basically make untrashable defensive upgrades and build these board states with like Lady Liberties or whatever they need to score out. And they just kind of push towards that while having a massive amount of cards in archives. I think that one's softer to tech, but it's a very surprising deck to play against.
Yeah, the key card in that deck outside of Power Shutdown to put a bunch of cards in your archives at once is Nanocivic Grid.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
So this was was it a Tiebreakers creation? Maybe that tournament was just before the Tiebreakers actually formed. I don't remember, but certainly piloted by Baran Wu and others at that tournament, which essentially puts a bunch of cards into archives, and it just runs loads of cheap End the Run ice, like probably the most cheap End the Run ice that any Jinteki deck has ever run.
Yeah.
Because all you need your ice to do is resolve the End the Run subroutine using the text of Nanocivic Grid, so that the runner can never get into archives to flip archives over, which means they can never trash a Nanocivic Grid on the remote, which means you can just score out over 4 or 5 turns with an uninteractable remote and uninteractable archives.
Pretty rude. And also, like, very much worth noting, this format has a bunch of garbage you can put in archives, where even if the runner can run archives, things like Shock, Breach Dome, I'm aware some of those might be pointed out of this combo deck. I think Breach Dome is worth points at a minimum. Just running archives, you can end up taking a lot of damage, and that's sometimes not sustainable. Awesome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Breach Dome is a real rude one, which does damage and also hits off the top of the stack. So if you're the kind of person like me who's been trying to play Jaitinho in Eternal, losing a knife just randomly from the top of your deck is a pretty sad way to lose a game, let me tell you.
I guess that's why Toron here is pretty comfortable with 120 cards. So we're going to actually maybe see this, where it's two toolbox decks, either Cabanessa with a 120 card pile that Cabanessa can grab at instant speed, or IG with an archives full of options. I think it's going to be quite interesting. I can't tell off the top what are going to be the great Shaper cards to pull for exactly this matchup. Shaper does have some tools to deal with, assets, whether it's just Parisha, but that doesn't go far enough. This is the sort of matchup where cards like Salset Slums are really important. Things that remove from game instead of trashing get around IG's text, technically. Rumor Mill is huge, or not Rumor Mill so much. It's not bad, but I think the current Employee Strike turning off Industrial Genomics, Imp, those are the sort of cards that are really good in this matchup. I don't think there's anything huge that's Shaper that comes to mind, but again, I'm not too familiar with the format. Is there anything great we're looking for?
It depends. So as Toron here, your first priority is going to be trying to figure out which exact kind of IG this is, because the 2 decks I've just described play very differently, and it's possible that 1515 is playing something else entirely. As with any Eternal deck, you can do all sorts of other things. But if it's playing the net damage version, then you're probably going to want to go to something like Guru Defender or Feedback Filter.
Guru, huge.
You have don't need Caldera so much. Or you could do. It's only 1 influence, but you have Infaction options that do similar things. Which allow you to basically turn money into net damage prevention. And the World Tree deck, as you might imagine, is pretty good at just printing cash when it needs to. So if you're going to be trying to fight a long game where you're taking a lot of net damage over the course of the game, one of those cards plus a bunch of money is a good priority. As for the Nanocivic Grid deck, the one like straight counter to Nanocivic Grid that exists in the card pool, I believe, is Tracer.
Oh, cool.
It's a criminal program that gives you a click ability to run a server, and the first subroutine that would resolve just doesn't. It actually just gets around the text of Nanocivic.
Be very cool to see that in this list, but that's a very interesting card. One of the few cards that can make a run on any server, notably, for whatever that matters. Do you want to dive in?
Let's do it.
Awesome. Cool. So we're going to in for a treat here. I think last time Toron on stream said that he would play a bit slower because he wants to nail all the triggers, and you have a huge toolbox. You don't want to overstep a bit. So step 1 is going to be setting up. So Cabanessa Wu has a bunch of ways to get those. And we're probably going to see 2 World Trees on the table at some point. We also have a bunch of daemons, things like Deg Deer, things like Leprechaun, that allow you to host cards without their MU cost really catching up to you. So Leprechaun's a big one. I'm a huge fan of Deg Deer in any format I can play it in. So often those will come down, and then Cabanessa Wu gets access with the World Trees to things like Coalescences really quickly, and that's usually the first step, which is Toron setting up the engine.
I was going to say, Coalescence is kind of the glue card that really ties this whole deck together. Just recently printed, of course. We're familiar with it from Standard, where you'll do things like get a counter on your end testing and sell it to Aesops, maybe get a card out of your lily pad. Here, it's much better than that. You'll notice, looking at Cabanessa Wu, that she doesn't let you search for virus programs.
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of stated reason for that, as I recall, by FFG at the time, was so that you couldn't search for cash,
Yeah.
which is a one-influence criminal card that is effectively coalescence, but it's a virus. Because the idea that you would just have a click for 3 credits button was a bit too powerful. Well, they printed a non-virus version of coalescence, and now Cabernet Wu has a click for 3 credits button that is also leaves behind a card that you can turn into something else with World Tree. So we'll expect to see that here.
This is the Cabernet Wu list. It's not as long as I thought it would be. So these are all the programs, and you see some wild stuff in there if you can read the text. Things like Ankusa. It looks like we're just going to start with a coalescence and an SMC, and it looks like we're going to start self-modifying code is going to be spending 8 credits to get the World Tree, and coalescence is going to become something else, probably another coalescence to get the credits up. There's the World Tree again. First successful run of turn, trash one of your cards for another one, and there's the Pavilion. So I think we're looking at a damage deck here. I don't know if that favors the runner or not, but this is the huge trash cost preventing you from drawing cards.
Yeah, so that's a really good, nice piece of detective work done by Toron there to figure out, okay, now I know what I need to get to with my World Tree, which is a board state where I'm unkillable, essentially.
Yeah.
Can I get there faster than OF15 can kill me is an interesting question. And we see the cohort guidance program raised here.
Such a good card.
Accelerate. Yeah, really nice. Really accelerates you forward, draws you credits, gets you cards, and puts face down cards in archives for your identity. So
yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the last major Eternal tournament was an off meta month, and I think Jai won that with cohort IG, or was it Axio? I'm not sure, but the cohort overperformed as like just such a synergistic card with industrial genomics, either filling up your archives clicklessly or getting you tokens to score out actual agendas if that's part of your game plan.
Yeah, that's right. And we see OF15 has spent some influence and some points on violet level clearance here.
Oh, cool.
Really nice. I'm going to double check that points list because Warlock's not here to keep correcting me.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the list. I think it's 1 point. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, we're using that just as in quote unquote the fair way. Since you're not CI, you don't get to just keep all the cards, but you do get to just put them all in archives, which is exactly where IG wants them to be.
So this is the end of turn 2, and there's 7 face down cards in archive. So the trash cost of everything is increased by 7, unless you run archives to flip those cards face up. Now again, this is not only installed cards. If you run HQ and hit a snare, this is 7 trash cost snare. Now I don't know how big that's going to be for the matchup, but it just adds up clearly when anything becomes untrashable. Seeing that Pavilion again, and we're going to grab the Hyperdriver, another pointed card. You often see this in combo decks, but this is a deck that can just use this and not worry about the 3 MU, or is it? I think it's 3 MU to help with the setup.
3 MU, yeah.
Yeah. So this on the deck deer takes no MU, and this means next turn Toron's going to have a huge amount of clicks to work with. We'll see if off-15 gets the Pavilion down to stop some of the card draw.
Yeah, deck deer, just a hugely impressive card here. Lets you install this Hyperdriver for free and without worrying about the MU, which, as you say, is 3, the most MU intensive card in the game. But also with the coalescence, your click for 3 button becomes a click for 4 button because they also reduces the cost of the card installed on it.
So 2 on the table, another violet level clearance. There's 10 cards in archives, and you might ask, why can't Toron just check it? It can be nearly lethal or really disastrous. And even if the cards are flipped up, there's a turn after off-15 can flip every single card face down by playing something like Kakarenbo. Now we do have a Beth here, which is going to give a drip of cards or credits on this threshold. And whatever this card is, I don't think we're able to trash it. We just want to see what it is and fire World Tree. Probably going to trade that Sacrificial Construct, a cheap little resource, to see if we have any tech here. It's a Laguna Velasco. That's just some card draw, and it's not going to do much when the Pavilion gets flipped up for only 1 credit. Laguna, basically what the text of, what's it called? Verbal Plasticity, but any click. So just keep drawing for 2 if you want.
Yeah, click to draw for 2, and yeah, we actually immediately just only get to click to draw for 1 because of the Pavilion here. Yeah. So a line that maybe Toron would regret having seen that Genetics Pavilion did get installed.
Now, in hand, we have some of that tech where if you can just get your Rozekis down and establish your economy, you are going to be able to leverage infinite economy into infinite protection. That's Feedback Filter. 3 cards for net damage is incredibly expensive, but you only have to prevent the net damage that's going to be lethal. So as long as you have your credits up, that's technically a choice, as much as it might be unaffordable in the early game. Checking here again, this is the Cabernet Wu menu, and any card that is installed this way will be removed from game at the end of the turn, which means if you can flicker it with a card like Scavenge or Rejig, that doesn't count as that copy of a card. It does get around it. So it looks like Toron either wants to get something for tempo here or something to install, take some money off of it, and then just install a program on top of it, trashing it. This deck, for being 125 cards, I believe it plays a full playset of AR Levy Lab accesses. So it does actually want to just like shuffle the deck and put its archives back in every once in a while. Oh, compilation, huge tech.
Yeah, so this is a really nice. I was trying to think when you asked me about tech cards for the
Yeah.
matchup, whether there was anything that was tech against the text of IG itself. And yeah, Coalescence is that. Sorry, not Coalescence.
Compilation,
just got installed, but Compilation is that card that lets you just nope the trash cost of a corp card, however high it may be.
Have you seen these
and,
nested
turn
triggers?
that agenda back on.
That turn was ridiculous. It was like compilation steal something,
Yeah.
then install a coalescence on top of it, then install an SMC on top of it, then use the SMC for a hyperdriver, and we're still only using up 2 MU somehow. That is absolutely just Shaper World Tree nonsense.
And you know what else we are? We are really grateful that we're playing on JNet and not in paper.
Yes.
Because this would be impossible to manage.
I want to play this deck in paper. It'll take you probably
Do you?
2. Yeah, it's fun. I like 100 card decks. I don't think. Yeah, it's not gonna be fast. You do search your deck many times a turn. Triple advance into Regenesis. We're on 4 points. A future perfect. Whoa! Off 15,
Oh, that's
15.
exciting.
Saying, I know the late game might be a problem, but we are on game point now, and any card on the table you have to consider checking. How can you fast advance out of Regenesis in this IG deck? There must be at least one card that does it without violating the Regenesis text.
Oh, there must be. The one that comes to mind is Hollow Man, which is the way you do it in standard.
Yeah.
Which is also pretty good in IG since its trash cost at the moment would be 10.
This could be game point. If there's an agenda in archives, then Future Perfect is hard to steal from there because you have to play a side game and touch all those traps. But if that's just Hollow Man into Regenesis from hand, this could be a really short game.
It could be, although presumably this deck is playing Clot, so
yeah, that's true.
Woo here has the option to potentially go and find the tech needed.
Oh, hey, trick shot, not banned in this format. I don't even know if it's worth points, but this is going to be some credits to spend on installing and bouncing over. There's our third hyperdriver, and that's the other 5 influence Jinteki card, Chairman Hero, to come for your hand size. And we're going to check this new remote here. We can't trash that much as a bioethics association for 10 trash cost. This will just be a damage a turn. It is one of the first political assets we ever saw back in the Mumbat cycle, but this eventually does just take cards out of hand.
Yeah, so really interesting and exciting deck building choices from OR15 here to kind of combine this kind of grindery asset-based kill plan
with real points.
As we see Toron pay the full 10 for the trash there to actually also score. It's a similar in a way to the RH decks, the Restoring Humanity decks that we've seen in standard over the past year or so, forking between Regenesis on the one hand and Punitive on the other hand. In this case, probably we're not playing Punitive. There's a lot of counter tech to that in Eternal. But we are, we're just saying, hey, you're going to die to my assets or you're going to die to my 3-cost 4-point agenda?
I can't believe Toron did have credits on that trick shop. That was a 10 credit bioethics. And we're going straight into the Kakarenbo. Again, this card tests your memory a bit, but it flips all cards face down. So we're plus 14 trash cost and allows you to install anything from archives, technically from hand too, if you do the order, and get 2 advancements on it. So that is potentially game point if that's a 5-3 on the table, as much as Toron can just probably run it. So we're going to ask to check the face downs first. Again, you can ask that so you don't have to work on the memory component, but there's 5 face downs and then the rest obviously are going to be mysteries.
Yeah, we do see a shock in the archives there, so that's at least one archives trap. They're waiting to ping Toron for some damage if he dares to ever check and flip up those cards in archives. But yeah, Kakarenbo, really big addition to IG. Actually, Kakarenbo was released during the time that I wasn't playing standard. I don't know if you remember whether these 2 cards were legal together.
I don't believe so. As an Ashes card, it's not really done too much, but it's always been that IG threat back in the day.
Yeah, and Kakarenbo just giving you the choice of any card you want to install from archives, put 2 counters on it. So again, this could be a Regenesis right here.
Yeah,
it could be a 5-3.
Could be a snare. It doesn't have to be advanceable, if I'm not mistaken. Which probably is not at this game point, but you can put anything back on the table, which is quite nice.
That's right. It could be a 13 trash cost snare, which is presumably the rudest Netrunner card that exists.
Checking HQ, sending out that Artist Colony for Temujin Contract, one of the 3-point cards in the format, one of the strongest econ cards we've ever seen. And this card, you mark a server that's going to be HQ, and every time you run it, you gain 4 credits if the run's successful. It's what Red Team wants to be. And checking HQ here, we see Chairman Hero, we see some currents that are attacking hand size, which is mostly a counter current, as much as it has some relevant text. And now with 13 credits, we're pretty sure we can charge the server. Its trash cost is increased by 13, but we will find out what these 2 advancements, what the Kakarenbo has put hiding here in server 5. It's a bioethics. Trash cost is a bit much at, I think, 15 credits, 14 credits. And so the net damage is going to start to come in. That feedback filter is on the table. So if you want to pay 3 to dodge the net damage, that's technically cheaper than trashing the bioethics. But the problem is that hits every single turn, and a mayfly is its first victim.
Yeah, so now we're just starting to potentially establish the lock. We saw the Chairman Hero in hand, which can come down to deny 2 hand size to the runner, which is sort of like net damage, but can't be prevented with this feedback filter.
And you get the same sort of like healing window where you can res right before the runner's end of turn, so they have to end their turn on 3 cards in hand. It's very frightening, and we'll see how that lock starts. Genotyping also here, just for a bit more recursion. I think this card is still in standard, if I'm not mistaken, but just adds cards face down to archive. Sometimes that's all you need in IG.
Yeah, there's a few different versions of effects like this now. We have genotyping, we have simulation reset coming out of the Borealis cycle. The cards like that just let you put more face downs in archives while you're continuing to do useful things with your cards and play the game, present more threats. It's really interesting. So the interesting thing about commentating on or trying to play against Toron's World Tree deck is that no one else has really explored this deck to the extent that Toron has, to my knowledge, in the format. And that means that we're seeing somebody kind of work out these lines, sometimes in real time, in a way that nobody else has had to do before.
Whoa.
And it's really hard to know what the approach should be, but we go for the archives run here.
So this archives has a bunch of damage in it. It's 5 damage, 2 of them from the top of your stack with things like Breach, Dome, and Shock. Now we install the Film Critic, which is a card that allows you to steal agendas, or exactly not steal them, technically, but you can host an agenda on here and liberate it later. Now this card is another Breach Dome on the table. We know it was not a pavilion because Toron got away with the 4 card draw here, but we have 3 points liberated and all the cards are face up. That bioethics, we do not have the click to trash it, but we do have 3 points and a fresh archives here. Off 15-15, definitely looking for another Cockerembo to reset those trash costs. Again, running archives here was at least 3 damage and 2 of them from the top of the deck as well, which the deck damage is not super important into a 120 card deck, but it is a thing here where 15 might need to ice up archives and might get those cards flipped down.
Yeah, Toron in the game chat there, just recognizing 15's game of the table breach dome, rare play.
A very rare.
And it did its job, right? It took Toron's last click to go check it rather than go trash this bioethics, so we get to get 1 more damage out of that. And it lasts into the turn to see if 15 has the backup Cockerembo or some other way to get face downs in archives. We're over installing the Breach Dome. That's a nice little move there to get that in archives where it wants to be, but face down.
Now, Bioethics took out Simulchip. This deck also has Clone Chip, and that's going to be an important card in certain pinch situations on the basis that that gives Toron access to recurring the copulation, which is one of the easiest ways to deal with the text here in IG. Now, that Bioethics is only currently 3 credits to trash, and that's probably going to come down this turn. I'm assuming we're going to see things like Friends in High Places come in and rebuild board states. That's usually what happens, but there's a chance that points are going to matter. I'm not sure how much pointed all those cards are in combination.
Yeah, so Bioethics, Breach Dome, and Shock, I believe, are all points.
It's IG points? It must be.
I think IG itself is
2
points.
Yeah.
Also, yeah, IG is 2 points, yeah. And those 3 cards I mentioned are a point each, I think.
Second World Tree on this deck deer. So we get
Bioethics is also 2. Sorry.
We get a World Tree trigger into a World Tree trigger. Technically, you can target the same thing. And this second World Tree on the deck deer not taking up MU, if I'm not mistaken. And so now we're going to be trading some of our resources. SatCon, a 0 cost sacrificial resource. We have a couple options here. Environmental testing is a bit greedy. Councilman doesn't do too much in this matchup, I don't think. Another Temujin, you could just mark archives as much as the damage is going to be the issue here. I'm not sure what you want to get. Political Operative is kind of fun because you can respond to some of these things, but it looks like it's just going to be a daily cast and a lily pad for some card draw. 5 credit to trash Rashida here. Still haven't seen any asset tech like a Miss Bones or a Parisha. We're just got the money going here, and maybe the Rozeki will hit the table. I'm not too sure.
Yeah, if you think you've played Japer before, playing with 2 World Trees in play is really something else. Now we're cooking. Just wait for me to get to my 12 cost 4 MU engine, and then I'll start playing the game. Is the shape away.
A lot of decision points, and Toron still just firing on all cylinders. Bioethics has been on the table for a couple turns, not taking it down. We still have that feedback filter, and we still have Beth also giving us an extra click every turn now that off 15 is over the 15 credit hurdle. see the bin here again. I don't think Toron is playing with a cyber feeder, so there's going to be no sort function. You just got to look through that. Levy AR Lab Access is an important card, and we all saw in some earlier games Toron firing that on like turn 2, turn 3, which is kind of laughable with a 120 card deck. But the idea is that if you want to get your Coalescence as one of your most on-tempo World Tree triggers, kind of regardless of board state, that is absolutely phenomenal. 3 cards on the table. Toron has some stuff to check. How scared do you think?
Cohort.
Sorry?
I was just going to say, this cohort's still sticking here, doing a bunch of work in this game, just refilling archives, keeping the money up. And Toron's not had any time to go and find tools to deal with the piece of ice that's in front of it.
There's Aprecia. We haven't mentioned too much the ice in this matchup, but some of the ice is incredibly relevant, whether it's cheap and the cheap damage cards. Ooh, double Aprecia. Things like Engram Flush or Cortex Lock can be disastrous. And then also things like Crick just see play in this format as some archives recursion that gets your best cards back on the table with their high trash costs. Check.
Yeah, Crick is a really big piece for IG in general, since you're putting a bunch of things in archives, and it also is good at protecting archives.
Yeah.
That's a really nice one. And then, as you mentioned, things like Cortex Lock can be really spooky, although a bit less so when you've got 4 of your MU accounted for quite nicely here. There's also just little annoying things, potentially things like Pup. Like low-key, kind of still quite annoying in Eternal, just making you have some kind of answer, or just pay attacks every time you want to run through. But yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the ice will be in this deck.
Toron has produced the infinite economy of Magnum Opus. The click for 2 credit button feels pretty good here, but on the other side of the table, off 15-15 is definitely building the lock. We have 2 bioethics. We have a Dr. Vinch and Keeling, which is hitting hand size. There's a Chairman Hero in hand or maybe on server 7. So this could potentially be the final turn if Toron can't figure out how to take down some of these cards or pay at least for the feedback filter. So this is getting kind of spooky here. Again, running archives to like flip all the cards up does damage to you. And that means it's harder if you can't deal with all the bioethics that you can just flatline. So there's a lot of forks here, and we're doing install double advance in server 10. If that is just like an Obokata protocol or even a Fuji, that is threatening either you're going to lose to points or you're going to lose to flatline. This is a huge play from 15 if that's a net damage agenda. I'm not sure what else it could be. I don't think we're on Biovaults. That doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, we have to do some quick point counting here to see if we can afford Obokata.
For those who don't know,
itself
it's a
1 point.
4 net damage steal. This was the Proto Fuji. Pretty unhealthy for the game, if you ask me. Luckily banned in the standard format, and we now have Fuji. But this is just going to be 4 cards from hand, which is not even a hand size Toron has, barring, of course, you can draw up. We do have a Sports Hopper also in Toron's hand. That is a card that you can just crack at instant speed to draw, I believe, 3 cards. It's a relatively medium cost hardware, which can matter. But it looks like we're going to liberate the Fuji and just charge our remote server saying if it's an Obokata, I'm going to film critic it and take it away. Not dealing with that on steal text, the additional costs. Film critic does beat all that stuff. It's a hostile, so it looks like the card in the remote server is some sort of thing to be trashed. Also infrastructure, just going to do net damage whenever you trash an installed card. Or just a card, excuse me.
It's always an interesting dynamic with World Tree where you have to make these potentially extremely important World Tree decisions before you get to access the card and know what is actually going on here. Incidentally, I did a points check.
Okay.
I'm doing my due diligence, Warlock, while you're not with us, and we do not have enough points. We've seen all 7. It's 2 for IG, 2 for bioethics, and then 1 each for shock, breach dome, and violet level clearance. So that's the full 7. So yeah, no Obokatas here, but it could be Fuji, and certainly could be Future Perfect, which we've seen 2 copies of already.
Muse Intercopulation is such a cool line here. It's a clearinghouse.
Wow.
Very
cool.
The
clearinghouse.
So that
and it does get rid of.
Would have been 4 damage from the start of turn triggers of bioethics and then clearinghouse being rezzed. This is going to drop Toron to only 6 credits, but 3 cards in hand, and a bunch of those cards are going to be attacked here. Oh, it looks like we do have Cyber Feeder. All right. We got to do some maintenance. Make sure
station management. Bonus content.
You see behind the scenes what the players are doing at the highest levels. They do have their tools, and you want your tools to work. That's for sure. Bioethics, the damage is going to go through. We're going to lose that hopper. I don't think we're going to pay 3 credits here for that extra damage. There's no bursts here that you're worried about. I think Neural EMP is also a pointed card. That is a card that can just trade 2 credits for a net damage if you've made a successful run. I don't think we're going to see that here. you need to get out of this lock. You need to basically figure out how to recur your copulation and deal with keeling. But the best thing is here, the one card that survived in hand is the rejig, and you can rejig the copulation and just take down keeling.
Yeah, that's true. But there, as we've seen, there are now like 3 cards that are killing you in play,
Yeah.
and we think there's a chairman hero floating around somewhere, although it may have got ditched to archives by cohort at this point.
Yeah.
But certainly there are more similar effects available. So yeah, really getting the screws tightened. Well put, Axu.
But 10 cards in R&D here. This is a genotyping that just got played. I'm not sure. Now we're up to 14. Mind you, that card does shuffle 4 cards back, but this puts off 15 on some sort of clock, and it looks like trying more to flatline than to score out, which I get it. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, but then any one of these cards, if unchecked, could be a Regenesis, right?
Yeah,
To just win
exactly.
the game. So it's really tough to navigate here, especially we've gone through all our hyperdrivers, so we're just playing with 4 clicks each turn. And those clicks are really getting texted out here between, the Magnum Opus button, the Velasca button, which are both helping you to live, versus actually deploying your cards or checking the table. Lots of options here.
So
and yeah, really to navigate.
We pawned the copulation, which means rejig is a bit more difficult. You can rejig the Muse for sure. Drawing up there, we did get a free card draw from Beth, which we appreciate as much as our hand size is going to go down to 1 card at the start of the corpse turn. So not too many options. Dummy Box does not protect damage, and Councilman is something that the corporation can play around if there's something on the table that they want to res. It's a card that prevents reses, forces a de-res, but you can res it once on your turn, once on your opponent's turn. This is getting tricky here. I wonder if you can just do simulchip, run server 8, and grab the copulation to deal with the keeling. Now that does mean 11 and 12 can threaten to be Regenesis to close the game out, and I don't think off-15 minds risking putting Regenesis on the table on this board state. There's way too many things going on.
Yeah, I mean, again, we could make this server 8 play with a single click if we wanted to trade in for a Muse with World Tree. You'd have to trade the deck deer because I believe you have to pick a different card with World Tree.
So it looks like we're going to go Muse.
I remember that anyway.
And just bring the copulation back. Yeah.
Okay, I was wrong.
So keeling has been dismantled. We're still taking 2 damage a turn as a second cohort. So we're going to be ripping through the deck here. This does mean a server 11 can just be a 5-3 on the table, and you can never advance this. It looks like that might be the case.
Wow, we're getting at least one advancement here.
If that is a 5-3, the second cohort will give a second advancement, and then 3-4-5. This is net damage coming in, not being prevented. Off 15 might just have points on the table. It looks like that is a 5-3 scoring out on the table. We're leaving a clear gauze. It is a bacterial programming.
Incredible. Oh, the bacterial, of course. Another really good card in IG.
Well played to both players. So much tech, and Toron dodging the lethal damage, but off 15 finding that great line between threatening flatline and actually pushing points forward. That Regenesis was the game on, what is it, turn 3 or turn 4, saying like, hey, I'm not sitting back and playing your game, you're playing mine. Well played to both players.
Yeah, really well played. I mean, really, really interesting game. That'll be one for them to both watch back and think about some more. But yeah, it's very technical, very difficult, and one of the sort of hidden downsides of playing World Tree, a deck like that, you've brought 125 cards to the table with the ability to search for any of them whenever you like.
Yeah.
And you've not quite come away with the victory there. You've got to be thinking a lot about that game afterwards. There's a big cost of post-game analysis of a deck like that where you're...
It's worth shouting out.
You have to think to yourself, surely there was some way I could have won that game.
Yeah, it's going to haunt you for a while. A really cool thing about this format too is that this is week 2, and if I'm not mistaken, between week 3 and 4, players are allowed to change their decks. Whether that means modify their decks or entirely pick up a fresh deck, you can do that. And so seeing players react to the players and to the replays they've seen, but also just tuning the deck, like changing 10 cards in a 120 card deck doesn't seem like it'll make an impact, but seeing World Tree Woo change from week to week to week is going to be an absolute treat.
Yeah, really interesting. But yeah, for the time being, these are the same decks we saw last week, and we'll be seeing them again next week.
Yes.
Which means we get to see this fan favorite Liza talking thunder.
The chat is chanting Liza from Rain in Reverie. I believe Liza won like 2 or 3 nationals in a row and then finally got banned out. This ability is pretty flexible, as much as like just floating tags seems to be a bit of a risk in Eternal, but not too much of a risk is my guess. Her text says, first time you make a successful run a turn on a central server, you have to draw 2 cards, but you do also have to take a tag. And by seeing that 1 card in hand, that is a counter surveillance, the marquee tag me card. This means we're going to be running R&D, you're going to be running HQ, and Cerebral Imaging can have a lot of cards in HQ. We're going to be sweeping all and accessing like 16 cards maybe and winning the game. Just really fun.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, it's the kind of deck that has often been considered this kind of tag me archetype, right? The idea that you just take a bunch of tags,
Yeah.
completely ignore or mitigate the downsides of having tags, and then use them to win the game. That's often been considered a like kind of problematic or difficult or uninteractive archetype at different points in the history of the game. But in Eternal, that's small ball, baby. You're just you're one of the good guys when you're playing Tag Me Liza.
And we have some other powerful cards. Mars for Martians. This is only one influence. It gives you credits for each tag you have, which is exactly the money you need to fund the surveillance, the counter surveillance. This card is and was banned in standard alongside Liza, I believe even before Liza, if I'm not mistaken. And we might see that in this format as much as I'm assuming it's a pointed card. Now, we saw this earlier today. We got to see not too much of a game, unfortunately, but with CI on the other side of the table. And I know that we saw Toron's list last week. This is not a Cerebral Imaging score to 7 combo deck. This is a flatline CI, and specifically a core damage flatline CI, which is a pretty wild combination of cards. Can you explain what people are going to be seeing in just a couple minutes?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a deck that uses brain rewiring, which is a card that's been used to kill runners out of CI since it was printed, basically in Terminal Directive.
Yeah.
It was a powerful deck in Standard for a while. One of several CI decks that took the 2017 World Championship by storm, although not the one that eventually won. I believe it finished in second place.
That's correct.
But there's been a few different explorations of how to assemble that same kill combo in Eternal. Brain rewiring, just so people know, is basically, if you know re-education from Standard, which lets you trade your cards for the runner's cards when you score it. This is a similar thing, except it's a 3-1 instead of a 5-3, and you get to trade credits for the runner's cards instead. It gives them a card for free, but it's basically a very easy way to just enable a flatline by wiping out the runner's hand largely uninteractively. And then you only have to deal with the one card they get left with it. This deck was, I believe, is an iteration on the deck published by Abyss Back, which came fourth place in the off-meta month, which is a new kind of very clean implementation of the brain rewiring combo deck that uses Dupestad Grid as a way to deal damage to take that last card out of hand, and then doubles that damage with the current defective brain chips, which says when the runner would take a core damage, they take 2 instead.
Oh, cool.
So just very cleanly, you score the rewiring off the Dupestad, and that does the core damage you need to kill them. And you can do all that out of hand, of course, with CI shenanigans by drawing a bunch of cards, making a bunch of money, and taking a bunch of clicks.
My guess was that this is going to be on Kill Switch, but you're right. Defective Brain Chips is just a better current for that. I totally forgot about that card. There's like 2 core damage currents, which is pretty wild for how small the HB current card pool is.
Yeah, it's a card that has not seen a lot of play in the format, but that deck has really brought it back into play, and it has the convenient bonus of it's a kill piece and it's a current, so you can simultaneously remove your opponent's current in the middle of resolving your kill combo if they have a current that would disrupt that combo, like Rumor Mill, for example. Yeah,
currents are going to be really big. That's a huge part of Eternal. It's, some people have strong opinions about currents, but that sort of current battle we've saw against or across most of the games we've had the pleasure of watching today. So I have no doubt CI cares about most of the currents that the runners can be playing. With that, you want to dive in?
Let's do it.
Awesome. So again, Off 1515 had the bye week last week, so this is the first we're going to see of their decks, the first that Toron has seen of their decks. Notably, players are watching these on Sundays or watching the VOD, so they have an idea of what they're playing into, as much as some of the games I think are a bit more pre-recorded than sometimes the Sundays line up with. So best of luck, have fun. This is a pretty reasonable hand. This is not Andromeda, so we have to be a bit more selective of our opening hands, but Account Siphon really strong into the matchup. The counter surveillance you don't really need in your opening. Desperado is probably a 3 of it's all. I can't feel bad about that because it will be an open server, and that is a credit and 2 cards with Liza as soon as turn 1. And it looks like Toron going for the mulligan there. How many turns do you think you need to set up this kill combo in Brain Rewiring CI?
I mean, if the runner doesn't interact, you can get there by turn 4 or 5 pretty consistently, I believe. This is a deck I've been playing a bit of myself in the GLC Eternal League, which people should come and play in, by the way, if they're looking to get a taste of the format. It's pretty open to most levels of experience, I would say. Hard to say all levels because if you've never played any Netrunner, it's pretty hard to jump in to play Eternal.
Ooh, open HQ,
but yeah.
straight into the count siphon.
And yeah, a start like this, where you get a count siphoned, it's going to really change how the CI deck is going to play.
And we're already 3 tags in now. I don't think you want to use your counter surveillance like a legwork or a Maker's Eye, but Toron here with things like your digital life can bounce back. We have the second counter count siphon set up and a boomerang, so this is going to go across. Toron needs to do some work. Talking about accessibility, mind you, to Eternal, Toron ran the off-meta month Eternal tournament and published this great article, which is meant to be an introduction for people getting into the format and explaining some of the basics. That article, I believe Toron will be updating, but if you want to learn more about Eternal and learn some of the most important archetypes and have some basic deck lists to go in with, Toron has your back there. Really great. Discarding down to 4 cards here. As much as you have a Spin Doctor, you're losing 6 cards. Take that, Essa. That is not going to feel good.
Yeah, that's the downside of the ID for sure. Your hand size may go up as well as down. And yeah, we see the counter surveillance takes on an interesting valence in the matchup. Because usually, of course, you use that to end the game by digging a bunch of cards on R&D. But when you're against CI, if they have a bunch of cards in hand, you can actually threaten to sweep the whole hand, which is something that CI is not often worried about the runner doing.
Now,
in this case, though, the hand could be pretty small as we're back down to 0 credits here for the Corp.
Yeah, your digital life is such a big card from the last set. We're accessing archives, Cyberdeck's Virus Suite you find there. It's just a neutral virus, no net damage clause. It looks like off-15 is not even clicking on archive, so we can't see the cards in there, but you do see a juke stat floating on top. So it looks like ditching some of those combo pieces, as much as those are probably not going to matter this turn, down to 3 cards and 3 credits. Boomerang still in HQ. I wonder if you go and sweep here on HQ, because there might be agendas in hand. Firing Class Act off the Liza feels so good, and there's the first current defective brain chips. Real quick, I want to shout out Mezzy. Yeah, thank you for sharing Toron's link. Unfortunately, if you share a URL, it just gets eaten by YouTube chat, so we'll try and post it in the description. Nobody can see the link you posted, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's a good shout out. It's a really nice little document.
Yeah.
I find it actually really useful, even as somebody who's played a decent amount of Eternal.
So we see in the hand Dummy Box. This is actually kind of an important card because if you're going Tag Me and you want some of your resources to stay around, this is one of the few cards that does it. It trades resources from hand to protect the same sort of cards on the table, whether the resources are hardware or programs. Sometimes you see Paparazzi as a non-die tech to prevent yourself from flatlining to meet damage. And we just saw one in hand there. So sometimes it's important to keep those cards alive. Corporate Hospitality.
Yeah, Paparazzi.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah. I was going to say Paparazzi Wireless Net Pavilion is the classic don't die combo from Tag Me decks of old in Standard. But yeah, going to play Dummy Box as well, just to really shore up that engine.
Oh,
makes it pretty hard for any deck that's going to punish tags.
Counter surveillance, we're going in here. We're going to see 9 cards in order. Your digital life is coming up. Helion Alpha Test, a Vacheron's getting stolen, a Jackson Howard for 3. We have so much money, we don't have to care. We're just trash everything. We just saw 9 cards and only stole 3 points in a combo deck that's running 1-pointers. I don't know what the list of the agendas are, but that is going to mess up the top of R&D for a moment. There has to be points in HQ here.
We didn't even actually steal 3 points. In some ways, it's pretty rational again that we saw earlier. Isn't going to actually be in the runner score area for 4 turns. Which is a long time in a game of Eternal.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There we have it.
In some ways, that's kind of reassuring for Toron that you're not drawing too many agendas coming up.
Yes.
And we're now digging, and we probably have drawn that YDL that we saw on the top. There it is.
So now we're into it. 14 credits. We've got through 2 account siphons. I'm not sure in the heap if we've shown if we're on a current or not. Again, employee strike. But Mars for Martians, there is just a click for 10 credit button. Not totally necessary, but it is a priority. So you either play a click 1 or not at all this turn. Now we have the Amakua on the table, but Boomerang is marking the HQ ice. We'll see if this is the sort of deck that runs the sort of mythic ice, but I believe that is just a Fairchild 3.0, one of the strongest ice we've ever seen, honestly, in Standard. Just really good numbers for the first and only 3.0 Byroid. So all your clicks or none of your clicks.
Yeah, it does get a decent bit worse, though, when the runner has this massive stack of credits from the laundered from the Liberation of Mars. It's going to be... It's a bit of a tricky exchange for Toron there, spending almost half of your credits that you fought so hard for to get to that YDL on this ice, which is going to slow down the attacks on HQ, but potentially not stop them. As if over 15 really wants to, it can just run through there with lose 6 credits and boomerang the end run sub.
Yeah, clearly there's something in there to be protected. Now we've drawn a same old thing, which is a very relatively expensive in terms of time, but very cheap in cost when it comes to playing back your account siphons over and over again, recurring your currents. There's a lot of good reasons that CI can be scared of that card as much as you can trash it for a tag. That is a lot of money when you're only on 8, and hand size will be a problem. 15 knows, I think the next 4 or so cards on R&D, a bunch were trashed as much as we've accessed 9. Maybe it's like 5 or 6 cards. So the accesses of value here are only HQ. I wonder if they're going to take the time off just to get the Amakua up to 5 strength and start paying pennies to get through that Fairchild 3.0.
Yeah, it's definitely an option. It's not hugely appealing to keep running R&D when you know there aren't any agendas on it for a couple more draws.
CVSs
yeah,
are in
interesting inflection point here.
Yeah, I feel like both players here are stalling out a bit. Toron definitely can play any of the clearances. The issue is like the more you draw, the more you break R&D lock, and that is the one thing keeping this aggression at bay. We have another counter surveillance, and that's actually a really interesting thing here is that you want to get as many tags as you can afford to take, and this hand has no tag cards. I believe we threw out a rogue trading to hand size, which is one of the ways that you can print a couple tags, but actually off 15-15 wants to either wait and fire the next counter surveillance in a couple turns. Whether you want to fire and access all of HQ is also an option. A lot of players use counter surveillance exclusively for R&D, but CI makes that a really tempting bet. But actually getting more tags here would be pretty favorable.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned the kind of the way in which this agenda suite is built, right? So it's got the 1-pointers that it's using for the kill combo, but then it's got 9 sort of semi-invisible points in Vacherons that are going to be take time to pay out.
Yeah.
Don't pay you back straight away, and then it'll presumably have some other 5/3s to fill out the suite there. But another way to think about it is, if you just find the 3 brain rewirings,
you win.
You basically win the game on the spot, right? There's no other way for the deck to win reasonably. I mean, it's CI. It can take a bunch of clicks. In theory, it can fast advance 5/3s and try and win that way. But that's going to be pretty tough to do before the runner can just find the rest of the points. So
now we're checking.
Yeah,
checking archives here.
Could be tempting to just fire the counter surveillance. I was going to say, and there is the first copy of brain rewiring.
1 brain rewiring is going to put, in theory, in a couple turns, the game point for off 15-15. There is a Cyberdex Fire Suite in there, which doesn't give Amaku a counter. It's because we stole the agenda, mind you. Otherwise, you can just get 1 counter. But a nice on R&D, and that is ultraviolet clearance. So I think we're at the point that we're getting near breaking R&D lock, because this draws a heck of a lot of cards for your whole turn.
Yeah, ultraviolet clearance, one of the bigger sort of in-joke cards in the Netrunner card pool, where those clearance cards just kept getting more and more ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like Fairchilds. When are they going to stop? They didn't stop. They kept going. Now, this one, notably, I don't know if the text is different. It forces you to install a card, even if you don't want to. It's not optional. Maybe the NSG text is different, but I don't know if this is a new card or not. We see 2 diversions and a Mars for Martians. Mars for Martians is a 12-credit econ card, but it might not be the play here. Oh, another Vacheron. We did break R&D lock. Off 15-15 now needs to just run down the proverbial, but also the literal clock. We just need to wait here and just hope that you can't combo out. So whether it's diversion into diversion into diversion, just to keep Toron off of combo credits, 12 is maybe just enough.
Yeah, so we're probably really keen to find a way through this Fairchild here. I mean, even to just sweep it with the counter surveillance. If we can sweep it, trash a bunch of combo cards, then you just have to sit tight for 4 turns and keep the corp down.
So off needs to figure out again. You can still just keep pushing it. Again, if you can steal agendas, that means Toron doesn't have them. But these, you lose a counter at the beginning of every turn. I think every corpse turn, or every runner's turn, excuse me. And once those have no counters, they're actually worth points. So here, technically only on 1 agenda point. So Toron does have a clock. Gonna keep drawing in here. Again, we have 2 diversion of funds in hand. We have the rogue trading, on the table, and a same old thing, which can be another account siphon. So we'll see if Toron has the combo here and has the credits to do it, because I'm not sure how much the combo costs. You have to score out the 3-1, you have to res the Jupstead, you have to play the current, and we've seen at least the current in hand. And I don't think you throw out a brain rewiring unless you had a second one in HQ.
By default, the combo costs somewhere around 20 to 21 credits.
Oof, okay, that's big.
Yeah, but there usually you have a spare click, because Wage Workers is a really silly Netrunner card that lets you just randomly gain a bunch of extra clicks in your turn. So given that turn generally involves playing operations, installing cards, and advancing cards, Wage Workers giving you a bunch of spare clicks. So if you need a click to play a YDL, for example, in the middle of the combo to make the money you need, that is potentially aligned, but obviously it needs a lot of particular tools, and Toron is still digging for those tools, it looks like.
I would be really excited to see getting the counter surveillance on the table and sweeping HQ. Again, clicking through the Fairchild 3, maybe. If that's the case, the dummy box will have to do some work. So you probably have to seed your hand with resources, because Toron here, after that Violet level clearance, is up on a very comfortable, not so much credits, but a lot of cards in hand here after the MIC res, dropping down to 10.
Big Mick, yeah, that's just wiping most of the turn here. That's again, it's like kind of a tough exchange to make as Toron when you're credit limited, but if you've got that YDL to recover, you feel really good about stealing 2 of the runner's precious clicks here.
Yeah, YDL so big. Economic denial. It just, you bounce back for a single credit. You can always, or a single turn if you can do credit YDL. And installing the counter surveillance, just saying, hey, I can run HQ, I can get in there. It is up to you to trash this card, and you don't know how many cards in hand with dummy box can protect. And each of those are a click and 2 credits to find out. We know that off 15-15 can only fire the dummy box once. So you have to spend 2 clicks and 4 credits, which is still a lot of time and a lot of money for somebody holding 17 cards in hand.
Yeah, dummy box is a really interesting card. It's still in standard. It's kind of tried to play in a few different spots, but it hasn't really played out.
Yeah.
Even in the tag me decks in standard.
Tag me sub or
but
whatever.
it just creates this really interesting sort of dare moment where you put it down and you say to the corp, yeah, I've definitely got a handful of resources. And then you're looking down at your Trisho gambles in a division of funds like, yes, I'm fine. My cards cannot be trashed. I'm just going to project confidence. Oh, and we are going for the trash here.
Calling the
Wow.
bluff, preventing a trash by trashing the same old thing in hand. So that functionally trashes an account siphon. Now we might have to do it again. But Toron is saying if that counter surveillance goes through and accesses again 12 cards in HQ, he's probably cooked. Paid once, credit, not paying again, just putting something on server 2, probably a Spin Doctor or more likely a Jackson Howard to be able to save some of the cards in archives here. But off 15-15 now can flush and see every card in HQ for only 12 credits.
Yeah, we're discarding a full 7 of them to hand size here. So, yeah, lots of tricky decisions here for Toron. I think if I had the YDL in hand, I would go for the attempted trash.
Yeah.
But yeah, without having it, it's just a pure attempt to call bluff here.
Now
and with one more shot, they would have called it. But
we're on proper 4 points. The first Vacheron has ticked down, which means if 15 can find a real 3-pointer that's not Vacheron, that will be a win on the spot. So the question is, what is the rest of Tron's agenda suite? Are we going to be running and clicking through the Fairchild 3 here? You have to pay credits equal to the amount of your tags you have. You can't pay fewer, even though you will be accessing fewer. It's always just pay X. So HQ is an option here. R&D is not easily accessible behind an MIC.
No, and actually, kind of a nice line from Toron here is you have some insurance. Okay, so click 1, we try and trash the counter surveillance. Doesn't work out. Okay, so we install our Jackson Howard, presumably, and discard the agendas, and now they're not in HQ. So if off 15 pulls this trigger and goes for the triple click through Fairchild to access all of HQ, it's probably a lot less densely packed with agendas here.
Yeah.
But I don't hate doing it anyway because, yeah, you can trash the combo cards out of hand potentially. You're spending a lot of money, but you've got the rogue trading and the Desperado to kind of keep you afloat. So it's a really interesting option here for OF15, whether you want to just take the bait and make the full click play.
Yeah, I wonder if you respect the corporation and say that they've abandoned every important card. So your interest here is to run archives, to get Liza and Desperado to force this Jackson or Spin Doctor shuffle, and then just go to the top of R&D somehow. Again, we just need a way to get through that MIC, and a Boomerang will do it as long as you don't run last click.
Yeah, I mean, now's the point where you look down at the stack, right, and you see there's still 24 cards left there, which Liza's a 50-card identity.
Yeah.
Obviously, she draws you a bunch of cards, but you're still a criminal, and you're still, of the 3 factions, even in Eternal, the worst at getting through your stack. And so, in another deck where you might look down and see at this point as an Anarch, like no cards in the stack, or as a Shaper, a massive stack that you can search through, you're still at kind of the mercy of where that Boomerang ended up after the shuffle and where its friends are in terms of whether you want to dig for it or not here.
I'm assuming you play Aaron Moran, but I don't know exactly how quick the criminal points go. And I think parts of the tag pool are probably pointed. Data leak reversal is. We haven't seen that.
Counter surveillance and Merciful Martians are both pointed. That's 3 points between them.
Right. Oh, we're going for it. Sending
and
it.
Account siphon is 3 points.
HQ. So we're going to hit a Fairchild
We are
3.
going for it.
That's going to be 3 of the clicks here. We're still going to get Liza, and you can pay a credit fewer, I believe, if you do the counter surveillance first, unless it's on a breach step and not a successful run step. That might be a small important difference here. So it looks like we're probably going to be flushing here, seeing every card in HQ. Let's see what Toron is holding. We can't steal Ikawas, which is notable if Toron is playing an Ikawa project. Can't keep it in hand, understanding it's safe behind Fairchild 3. So we get to see here a current, a mutual favor, and a daily casts. That's a corporate grant. Not incredibly important here as much as denying credits. We have to pay 13 credits. Okay, so it is a breach step. So we have to pay 13. There's a rewiring. There's a rewiring. That is...
Whoa!
There's the Ikawa, but that means without the rewirings. I don't know if Toron has a game plan.
Oh, incredible. This is a weirdly high number of times today where we've seen a runner going for a multi-access run and then just the first access, or in this case, first 2
Yeah,
of
is the
9
thing.
accesses gets the cards you need, yeah.
So
Very entertaining. Wow.
Not only does Toron have only 2 more turns before we're up on massive 9 points, but if the deck is a brain rewiring combo deck, the question is how else can you score out, or more accurately, flatline the runner? We still have a card in server 2. It could be a jupe stat. But if that's the case, you're just going to have to play your current. It's going to have to survive. And even that only does 2 core damage. It's a Jackson Howard.
Yeah, I mean, I think the out here has to be score 3/5/3s, which is
I don't know if this
pretty
deck can do
slim.
it.
I
Yeah.
mean, with biotics and wage workers, like it's literally possible. Is it possible in the now 1 turn you have before the Vacheron enters the runner score area and wins them the game?
No, I don't
I
think
don't
you can
love the
score.
chances.
Yeah, I don't think you can score enough points in 1 turn. Now we're checking archives. We found that Boomerang coming back. Same old thing if you want to get account siphons or whatever your favorite event is to play again. Notably, counter surveillance is a resource, so it's a bit harder to recur. And hitting the bin there, purging the Amakua, still getting a counter after the breach step ends. I don't think there's much you have to do here. Whether you want to send an account siphon or even a diversion, well, you just can't get through the Fairchild, so I think you can just set up a bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a question of
You can do Boomerang Doof, I guess, for fun. Yeah.
Yeah, you may as well, right? Just really make sure, just in case Toron has somehow seen through the matrix to the line for scoring 9 points in a turn that we aren't aware of.
Fairchild
Just
3.
make it that much harder.
You can always get through by trashing a card or paying 3 credits. I think off 15. You can trash a dummy box for sure. We're going to get in here, not an Axis. You're going to get your Desperado. You're going to get that 10 credit swing, not a 15 credit swing, but still a 10 credit swing. And this leaves Toron on the final turn here with a lot of cards in hand, but only 13 credits, and you need to win this turn. The brain rewirings are all in off 15 score area, which is exactly where you don't want to be. Jackson drawing deeper, not even being pressured by off 15, saying with 2 clicks left here, not sure what you can do. This is where you start to like get panicked when they do like shipment from Miramore of wage workers, and something wild happens.
I was going to say, yeah, I think if this turn has any way of winning the game, it has to start with Shipment of Miramorph, which is one operation to install 3 cards at once, which then if you install wage workers, as you say, can start making us clicks. But
yeah, what's happening?
We're just well, we've spent 2 clicks on drawing 4 here, so I don't love the possibility of that we're making another 14 odd clicks that we would need to win the game.
It's something is happening. I think Toron is just stunting for fun. I don't think this is going to do much, but we got to see how far he can go even in like 1 click left here. So we played 2 operations and it looks like we're going to draw. Wage Workers gets the click because we spin doctored 3 times this turn. Wait, what?
Yeah, Wage Workers works with, and then we Jackson the 4th time to style concede. Love to see it.
Super style concede. Triple backflip into concession. Well played to both players. Wild games, mind you, really spiky and exciting decks. Unfortunately for Toron, though, after not losing a game, is going to come down to the middle there and off 15, coming back from the bye week, playing their first games in the league, taking 2 straight wins. Not too bad whatsoever.
Yeah, really nice start for over 15. And then this gives Augustus Caesar, who we're about to see in our last match of the night, an opportunity to really put some distance between themselves and the pack here if they can win some more games in round 2.
Exactly. So we're going to be tuning in. This is our last round today between Augustus and I believe Larrea. Now, if I'm not mistaken, one of these recordings, it won't be this one, might have some technical difficulties. We'll get through it, but I don't think it's this one exactly. So we'll be fine. We'll shout that when it comes up. It'll be okay. This is Augie versus Larrea. Augustus playing Whizzard. I think Whizzard is Genuinely, as exciting as Eternal is, why am I so excited to play Whizzard when I can? What's wrong with me? Why do I want to play Whizzard?
Yeah, there are many others like you, Andre.
Yeah.
It's just in some ways you can see it as you're just playing the ID that recognizes the kind of terms of engagement of the format. There are cards with high trash costs that matter a lot, and if you're just getting 3 credits a turn to trash them, it's not that dissimilar to starting the game with 3 Wizekis in play in a lot of matchups.
There's like
an MU free
wild stuff you can do in Eternal, and last time I know we played Eternal, I'm playing Whizzard with Desperado and crowdfunding and just playing my favorite cards that are just like good, baseline Netrunner stuff, and 3 credits on your ID is obviously a lot as long as there's stuff to trash. Now, Industrial Genomics, talk about stuff to trash. This we saw earlier today. I don't know what version Larrea is playing. We got to see her play this last week, excuse me. But this is the same ID. So cards and archives going to increase the trash costs of all cards, not only installed cards, and notably Whizzard can trash anything installed or not. So these 3 credits will be going really far. And then I think the current is going to be really important in this matchup, whether it is a rumor mill or whether it's an employee strike. Those both have very impactful differences against this IG deck. So Larrea has some work to do, either building up that archives or protecting that archives with Nana Civic, and we'll see which direction things go. You ready?
Let's do it.
Let's jump in. All right, opening hand here.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Pretty sure from last week that this IG deck is a kill deck, so it's going to be. It has the bioethics and some of the other cards we saw in our 15's deck earlier.
Very cool.
I don't know if it's also on the Regenesis fork that we saw, which was a piece of tech I really liked. It's funny that the scoring to 7 plan is the tech.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's an accurate way to describe it. But yeah, playing into Whizzard is an interesting spot for IG. You're going to want to pile up the archives, and then another way to deal with Whizzard is just to establish like multiple important threats on the same turn.
Yep.
Because those 3 credits are just once per turn. So if you have to spend them all paying the IG tax on the first card, you're not going to get to the second and third.
Now, Larrea went for the cap, as did Augie, opening with that Violet level clearance. So we just get a couple card draw there, a couple credits, but most importantly, this allows you, or forces you, to discard 4 cards into archives. So while you can't just run archives, and sometimes you want to check archives when there's not too many cards in it, that can threaten up to potentially 3 to 6 damage. Our start here is just Blue Moose, and we're going to go check, hoping not for a flatline. And this is quite a start. Breach Dome, and then 6 points in archive. As much as Bacterial Programming can add more cards to the heap, what are the rules around this? How does this work? The cards that are added, you have to access them, or are the rules old-fashioned?
This is a rules interaction that does exist in Standard. So so the rules for determining the candidates for access have changed a little bit over the years. But as I understand it, the way they work currently is that when you initially breach archives, you turn all face down cards face up. And then any cards that enter archives during that breach, as for example, because they were put there by Bacterial Programming, do get accessed by the runner. They don't have a choice about that, except for what order they access them in. But they don't get turned face up. Interestingly, though, none of them were added here.
Yeah, Augie
just 2 to HQ and the rest on top.
Potentially could have flatlined there if Larrea found a bunch of shocks and Breach Dome and just throw them in there. That is going to be a problem. Now, also, we ran into a Future Perfect, and Future Perfect is a side game on a 5/3 agenda as long as it's not installed. And Larrea went for the 2 cost pay, while Augustus lost the side game on 0. Now, that's always interesting because you can just run archives and force, the money to come out of the corporation's pocket. But that's where the Breach Domes and the shocks add up, because every run you make there, you're going to be losing cards from your deck and the top of your hand. From your hand. 0 coming down. A bit scary here. We actually see a fair bit of core damage already amped up for tempo. There's some interesting cards on this list. We have a source.
Yeah, so this is a really interesting. I've played a decent amount of Eternal against Augustus in the GLC Eternal League, definitely one of the sort of pioneering spiky deck builders in the format, I would say, in the sense of Augustus will take a good deck and make it just really the best version of it that it can be. I've been constantly impressed by what they've done with the different versions of Whizzard, and I really like this inclusion of Amped Up. So this is it kind of goes without saying because it's just an Anarch deck, but it's playing Clan Vengeance.
Yeah.
As we talked about earlier, arguably the most powerful runner card in the format, and certainly one of the most metagame warping ones, which allows you to turn damage that you take, including self-inflicted damage, into damage to the corp, essentially into trashing cards at random from HQ. We don't see one drawn just yet, but Amped Up is a really nice card for a deck that's playing that, whether you're ESO or not, to just power through while giving you a bunch of clicks in a format where you might not have that many because the games don't last that many turns, and also triggering your Clan Vengeance.
Whizzard finding there, it was Rashida Bladderwort getting get rezzed. Again, you know that card from the standard format. It's going to be a net damage as long as the credits aren't incredibly high for the corporation. Genotyping was played on the last turn, and one of the cards trashed. Larrea, she just shuffled it back in. So there's only one face down in archives. Now there's ice on the table, and you have to be a bit scared of face checking with ice because there's some really mean ice in the format. Whether it's a Cortex lock here that'll just do 4 damage, install Desperado, face check, flatline, like that was a thing that wasn't super uncommon back in standard in the day, but also things like Komainu and Crick either do damage or take cards out of hand. Hostile Architecture, gonna be Infrastructure, the older version. So this is gonna be a net damage you're gonna take when it gets trashed. Now this drops Larrea down to 0 credits, so Genetics Pavilion in that remote server, that's gonna be 6 more to trash. So we've gotten, I think, a fair bit of money off of Whizzard so far. I think at least 2 to 3 credits every single turn.
And this Desperado as well, right?
Yeah.
Desperado plus Whizzard is just such a, like we saw that 5, what it was, a total of 8 costs hostile go down for just 4 real credits, which is a really big saving there.
Now Larrea drawing
You
up
see the Ruber Mills in there
a
as
bit
well.
discarding
Oh, the
Caldera. Just saying, I'm gonna leverage that credits I'm getting off Desperado and off of my my orb, my Rozeki, and just say I will prevent whatever damage is super important for me. Larrea here on 0 credits. I'm not sure how you bounce up really quickly in Jinteki, even in Eternal. The bladder words have to stick for you to get up to credits, and I think Larrea is comfortable being on low credits. The question is how quickly can she set up a game plan? Whether it's a Regenesis threat, it gets harder and harder to check archives the more cards that end up in here. Hopefully, I think we get a cohort on the table sooner for the corp.
Yeah, and this is one of the other advantages of being Whizzard, right? Is that a lot of corp decks are playing a lot of trashable cards, and a lot of those corp decks are also relying on those cards for their economy, because many, if not most, of the most powerful corp economy cards of all time are assets.
Yep.
And if you can get on top of those early, you get situations like this where we didn't need to play an account siphon, but the corp is still on 0 credits on their turn, and the turn just gone.
Now, Rumor Mill Pass, just to get a current up on the table, not discarding a card here. This can be important. Mind you, things like Spin Doctor or Jackson Howard are unique cards that really allow you to protect your face down cards in archives. But this also blanks just like ridiculous, silly things like Rashida and I don't know, and most of your sysops, if you're playing Caprice. I think Nana Civic Grid is not unique. Most of the grids aren't, but it just does a lot of work.
Yeah. Keeling is another big one.
Huge, yeah.
The Genetics Pavilion that I believe is still on the table. I think that's what we know Server 6 is.
I think that is unique.
Pretty sure unique. Yeah. And Chairman Hero, who we saw the last game, which is probably also in this deck. So quite a few of the important kill pieces. Backed by Rumor Mill.
Now,
between Rumor Mill and Clan Vengeance, you have maybe the 2 most powerful ways as the runner to lock the corp out of the game.
I played back in Standard when Industrial Genomics was legal and Clan Vengeance was legal, and we're hitting that same board state, which becomes really awkward because if you hit Clan Vengeance, those cards enter archives face down, which is sometimes the worst thing to do. So you have to be careful when those triggers fired. There's a 7 trash cost clearinghouse, but with Desperado Whizzard, it's only a 3 trash cost a clearinghouse. So not something you're worried about, but there's a chance Larrea can threaten to get a lot of advancements on that really quickly. I think some of the IG decks back in the day did Ronin with dedication ceremonies and got that as big as fast as possible and is hard to trash. So I don't know if Larrea is going to produce that fork here, but just getting that big clearinghouse quickly, I don't know how quickly we can do it, eventually becomes a problem.
Yeah, pretty hard to play Dedication Ceremony and Clearinghouse in Jinteki, as they're both 3 influence Wayland cards.
Oh yeah, huge.
But not impossible to cheat some counters onto this Clearinghouse. I imagine, similarly to O15, we're mostly relying on Cohort as a way to get those counters on. But as it is in this game, that was basically just trade your click with a runner's click, because Augustus has no particular reason to be afraid of that clearinghouse with the corp on so few credits.
I think we trashed 12 credits worth of trashables this turn and are still looking quite comfortable here. Now, I don't know if this sees play, but there's technically 1 card in the standard or in the Eternal format. It is an ambush, a 0 cost asset that if you hit it, you have to play a side game. And if the runner loses the side game, they trash every single card in their hand. I don't know if that's a relevant threat, but Augustus seems to be happy to check every single card on the table here.
Yeah, that's a really interesting. It's a card I personally have very fond memories of watching get accessed in the 2014 Worlds Final.
Yeah.
Danda Junior versus Mintran, an all-timer, recently discussed on a blog by Supernaut, I believe, in the chat. in an interesting blog series. But yeah, that game where I think on turn 1 or 2, Dan accesses the psychic field, loses the side game, loses the hand, and really determines the course of that game. A really fun, swingy card, but yeah, not a card that I've seen in Eternal myself. I would believe that you play it NIG. It's a nice card to like sit your upgrades on top of if you're playing upgrades like the Hollow Man, for example.
You put it on top of a Hokusai or Prysac 50% of the time. Oh, I guess on a Prysac, like 33% of the time you just win the game, which is technically was a standard legal combo at some point. Now, DJ Fenris coming in off of they have Steve Cambridge on the DJ Fenris. Now, we'll see what it takes to face check. We do have a bunch of breakers in the bin. These are the heap breakers, Black Orchestra, MK Ultra. So those you can install when you encounter appropriate ice. Now, those cards technically have bad break math when it comes to things like Engram Flush and Cortex Lock. So we'll see. As much as it's a sealed vault for 12 credits, the most respect you can have for Account Siphon, this card is one of the few ways you can offload your credits, but it also is, I think, the highest trash cost we've ever seen on a corporation's card.
It also has synergy with Bladderwort, right?
You can just
sick. Put your credits there, keep your Bladderwort ticking. However, even if you know, maybe your assets run away with the game, not in this game, but you make a lot of money, and standard, the Bladderwort will stop firing the net damage at some point. Get that sealed vault up. It's going to be firing for the whole game.
Now we've made our pact. This is the Faust. It does allow you to break things with hand. We're going to be blanking something here. That's Amalia Zaloka. You got to name a non-virtual. I think Larrea. Oh no, little rumor mill. Feels so bad. So Amalia Zaloka is a unique card there that when resed you can name an installed resource and blank the text on it. But unfortunately, Amalia is a unique character. So unfortunately, Larrea exposing a card on the table, not getting advantage from it.
Eternal one.
Yeah,
I was going to say one of the things about the format. I'm going a bit of a divergence here, so interrupt me if exciting things happen. But one of the things about the format that we still get to see is like old, kind of now deprecated trends in design. So something that we used to see a lot more of is cards that blank your opponent's cards.
Yes.
Remove the text box of those cards. So Rumor Mill being the preeminent one, but Employee Strike being a very important one. And Malia is the only one that's still in standard, I believe.
Yeah, that might be right.
Yeah, and it's a thing that's kind of gone out of favor over time. But I'm going to shut up now because we're making a big archives access here.
That's 7 damage.
Flip it up.
The shock is 1 damage. Every breach dome is a card from the top of the deck, carved from hand. So it's 7 hit points gone. We're down to 6 cards left in the stack. And while this flips archives face up, there's no points in there. Only 22 cards left in R&D. There has to be points in HQ. We'll see what it takes for Augustus to face check HQ and get that Steve trigger. But Steve is going to be the recursion in this matchup. Malia coming down. Mind you, Whizzard credits, Desperado credits. We're on a comfortable 10 with a Caldera as well, mattering when it matters most.
Yeah, I mean, one of the many rude things about Breach Dome is that it's a Jinteki trap that actually does meat damage.
It's so weird.
So your net damage and core damage tech that you're packing in your Caldera or what have you doesn't protect against it, although Steel Skin works just the same as we saw. But yeah, so I believe we saw an Ashen Epilogue go to the heap earlier for Whizzard. Not sure if there's another copy or if we've got same old thing. To get back. We do have a DJ Steve here, so there's potential to go for the sort of diamond route to recur 2 other recursion cards to recur your Ashen.
Ooh, Hannah's going to be really good. We're through here. That's a vanilla, the cheapest end the run you can get. And looking at the bin here with DJ Fenders, we can pick 2 cards. It looks like it's a pair of mediums. There's a Future Perfect. Larrea only on 3 credits. Augustus bid 0 last time. Sometimes you just do the 1-1. It looks like it's a 1-0. So if you want to go back, you're going to discard a card from hand anyways, but we're going to install the medium. Now, medium is just Conduit. It's a bit better than Conduit because you can play run events all you want and you don't spend influence in the Anarch faction, but this is going to put some pressure on R&D for sure. We have 7 on the Clan Vengeance. The question is, when do you pop that, if at all?
Yeah, notably, I didn't notice any other recursion cards in the heap apart from the Ashen, so you're going to struggle to get the Ashen back. Oh, sorry, my mistake. There are 2 Katorga Breakouts.
Oh, there are.
That's a card I didn't
cool.
recognize immediately. So you do have a route to getting your Ashen back with Steve by getting back a Katorga. So you've got some insurance here as Augustus, which is going to be needed as this stack runs out here.
It's so wild in this format when you have access to Deja Vu and Katurga, a card that doesn't see a lot of standard play, just has better targets and just makes a run, which is Desperado or Whizzard. Maybe that's not that hard, but very interesting how there's similar cards with both upsides and downsides, and one just sees way more play than the other. Sealed.
It's also a points concern.
Deja Vu is points. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and Katorga is not. So Yeah, I mean, it's one of the artifacts potentially of the Eternal format being slightly less actively monitored over the past couple of years, where
Yeah.
some of the more recent cards that are very similar to the pointed cards are not themselves getting pointed and therefore getting played over them. So we'll see if that might change over time, if potentially get some more attention on the format as a result of this event, which would be really cool.
Yeah, I hope it does. The last time we had to change the Eternal points list was back at the end of 2023 after Worlds 2023. So it's been a minute, and we've seen a lot of cards come out, mind you, with the Liberation cycle wrapping up. We're going back HQ. Steve will get some more hit points as much as we're on Snare credits. I don't know if this deck is on Snare, and it looks like we're going for the double Katurga. There's the Future Perfect again. I imagine there's more than one there. 0-0 Larrea just letting go of the points, assuming Augie might pay 1. Now Katurgaing server 4. I believe we know that this is the Genetics Pavilion. So we're going to bring back a card from our heap. It is the Ashen Epilogue with Augustus's setup. Whether you rip the Clan Vengeance just to get it back in the stack before you go for the Ashen, that's the big question, is when do you use it? It looks like we're just popping the Ashen right away. And the cards we lost from the game, I can't tell what those are. There's like 20 cards removed from the game. There's only 11 cards left in the stack. Like Blue Moose Ashen, sometimes you just run out of fuel.
Yeah, the moose will get you like that. Yeah, it's really heads-up play to go and trash that Genetics Pavilion, which I had personally forgotten about, and maybe Larrea wasn't thinking about it either, because it's been on the table for so long. But Augustus just has that memory to make sure, because if it got rezzed, it would muck the Ashen and prevent you from drawing the full 5.
Cohort guidance coming down for Whizzard credits +1. Rumor Mill's still been on the table for a while. Larrea not finding the current or not scoring out, of course. That's how the currents work. Augie here now has turned off Blue Moose, has turned off also Steve too. We'll see how quickly that Ashen was necessary. That's just a table shock. That's going to be 1 net damage. You don't have a huge incentive to trash that card. It is 2 to trash, but that is just going to be a net damage. Whether you prevent it for 3 is up to you. You have limited hit points. As much as if that hits the paperclip, you're not too upset about it.
I love to see it. We are two for 2 on runners tilting off in chat about table traps in IG games today. It's good fun.
Sometimes you just need to put stuff on the table. So now trying to figure out what's in the other servers. I think one of these, no, I think we know one of them is for sure the sealed vault, which doesn't look like it's going to matter in this matchup too much. But HQ, we have the paperclip in hand that can come down to break into HQ for credit. But Caldera, we're preventing that net damage. That was a 3 credit access technically, reverse snare.
And Augustus actually pointing out that they'd kind of next leveled themselves, and it fooled me, to be fair, because there is this rumor mill still online. So the Genetics Pavilion was actually blank.
Yeah.
It prevented the Ashen, but we trashed it anyway.
Now the code gate for version of vanilla costs 1 more, but when your opponent breaks it for 3 credits, it looks pretty nice here. Off the top of the deck is Chairman Hero. Now that is worth 2 points, which will win the game, but for that text to be relevant, the card has to be rezzed, and technically your rumor mill is turning off that ability if Larrea puts it on the table. So really wild interaction there. But top of R&D is known, HQ. We only have 1 card if we want to go fishing for Steve Cambridge value.
Yeah, we've got our answer to what the ice in this deck is. It's just cheap and cheerful.
Yeah.
We've got 3 different types of very cheap, the cheapest available basically ice in each class. All the neutral classics from across the years, Vanilla, Quandary, and Tide.
None of those are pointed, right? Is Vanilla Ice pointed in Eternal? There's no way.
No, I don't know if there's any ice pointed.
I think Fairchild used to be at some point, but I might be making that up. I don't think there's any pointed ice. You might be right.
Oh, there is Kakugo is pointed, the grinder ice to prevent PU from getting too out of hand. Yeah, I think that's the only one.
Both players are checking whether Chairman Hero gets blanked for Rumor Mill. Mind you, Rumor Mill says that the text on non-region assets and upgrades is blanked. We're going to go for a check here. My guess that is the case, but very importantly, Chairman Hero's text is only active when the card is installed, because it's not exactly an ambush.
So we've got to find the remaining points here as the runner, and we, with our primary, I guess we've got all the bin breakers available. But we're kind of needing these credits to keep preventing damage or have the opportunity to prevent damage potentially.
Yeah.
So really, we're looking to get into servers with Faust, and we only have so many cards to do that. So eventually, we have a potential concern of running out of steam here.
Checking archives is getting more and more difficult. Now, we do have a pretty good read on where all the traps are. There's 1 shock and 14. I think there's 3 breach domes and a shock in archives. So at this point, Augustus running HQ makes a fair bit of sense because the agendas have to be somewhere. We've only seen 6 points. We've seen every genotyping, and I don't know if this deck is not on Spin or Jackson, but if the agendas are drawn, Larrea doesn't have too much to deal with them. Maybe she can feel brave and throw them in archives now because it's getting harder and harder to check as Augustus's cards are dwindling. Again, 4 credits to start a turn is so good. And then you get this free credit as well if you just want to use Hannah just to bounce off something with Desperado. It is a technically 5 credit start a turn trigger.
Yeah, we saw the kind of implication of the Ashen with the Blue Moose there for a little while, where the heap was pretty slim pickings for the Moose, but we're back on the back in the money now. We're paying 5 to trash a 1 trash cost usually Violet level clearance out of R&D there.
Yeah.
Just get a bunch of accesses here.
Hey, you get your Whizzard credits. You're happy for that. And Sing Deeper, again, these are medium runs, which, again, you don't need to do a run event. Or, sorry, you can use a run event. It's not like Conduit. So while we're paying 3 credits to access, that's actually going to be a card from hand instead. And we're going to see 3 cards, Bladderwort into a 5 trash cost Rashida, into a 6 trash cost Bioethics. Those are not agendas. We've only seen 6 points so far from a deck that's surely running at least 20. So Augustus feeling happy about the top of the deck. Is this less on Mavirus? I imagine they have probably play some amount of Virus Respect, whether it's CVS or Mavirus. Probably Mavirus, it's slightly better.
Now we get the Clan Vengeance pop, wipe the HQ here.
Yes, now we know exactly what's in hand. I do think there has to be multiple agendas here in archives, and Larrea is holding a Bladderwort, a Bioethics, and a Rashida. So Augie knows what's there, and just going for the concession. GG.
Yeah.
Got no outs. The question is, what can Larrea do to score out before she decks out with 10 more cards? And Augustus just playing control there, not actually needing to find the last points and just saying, hey, I'll set up. Whoever built this deck should consider some pad campaigns. The money wasn't there, even the pad campaigns. I think we got it.
Yeah, that's the Whizzard difference.
Yes.
Just keeping them down.
We got a lot of money off of Whizzard, and I do think that's why Whizzard sees a fair bit of play in Eternal. All right, we got our final matchup. I've been told that the recording of this one might skip a couple frames every now and then. That's okay. You don't have to adjust your TV screen. That's on our end too, so don't worry about that. Should be totally still watchable, and it's actually playing one of my honestly favorite identities. This is Matima Kundo. This came out in the Katara cycle, actually got play at Worlds, and even at the World Championship, maybe a couple players made the top 16, but it did not win the final Magnum Opus Worlds. This is an interesting Jinteki ID. It kind of feels a bit like Ag Infusion. It kind of feels a bit like a Teia sometimes. What can you tell us about Matima Kundo in Eternal?
Well, before I tell you that, Andre, I have to tell you that this being one of your favorite IDs is a real choice of an opinion.
Really? It's fun.
This card is messed up, my friend. It's so broken.
I play Geist. I don't care what the ice is.
This guy railing against re-education as Mari every week on stream likes Team Kundu.
Yeah.
You serious?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
You got a cool counterplay.
Oh, takes. Okay, all right. Yeah, look, you may see it in this game. I hope that Augustus's deck performs so that it can prove how good this card is, because, essentially it lets you install ice at the approach the server step.
Yes.
Which people may be familiar with for the interaction that we all know and love from System Gateway. Manigum Skunkworks and Analytic Void.
Yeah.
So when you approach the server, if you have multiple triggers that trigger at that time, you get to choose the order in which they resolve. Which means if you have an upgrade like an Analytic Void or a Manigum Skunkworks, for example, you get to resolve that upgrade's effect, and then if the runner is still running by, for example, paying the tax on Skunkworks, then you get to resolve the empty effect to reinstall an ice that they're now approaching that ice. So they break that ice, and now, oh, hang on a second. You've passed the ice that's innermost on the server, so you're approaching the server again, so you have to pay for Manigum again. That's pretty messed up, and that's just with Manigum, which is arguably the most fair upgrade that this interaction works with.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll see some Caprice Nisei, which has a similar trigger condition, and is just, just says, can you win a side game? No? Okay, run over. Oh, you won the side game? You're encountering another ice because of MT, you have to pay another side game. So just getting into any server against MT is often really, really difficult. And once it's up and going, we'll see that it can convert that impenetrability into just scoring out of a Lacosta quite cleanly and quite quickly. The early game is going to be really important here. And if Augustus gets established, you'd expect them to just run away with it.
Yeah, and some of the ice that Mati decks played with back in the day, like, I don't know if you have to play Sandstorm in this format, which is just an ice you can send forth like a kind of like a border control of some sort, as much as you can also play border control. We saw Mati Mukundos that would just play like the most punishing ice early, and even played acid spam sometimes, where you can just put a bunch of assets on the table and you can ice one of them in reaction speed based off the runner's board state, and they have to be aware of that and be scared of it. Again, we saw Augie play this last week, and I was so surprised to see cards like Lacosta and Charlotte. Like, basically the econ engine of modern Ag Infusion, Jinteki Glacier, is good enough. As much as Mati isn't incredibly fast, it is just incredibly reliable. It just trucks forward at this constant rate. And so we'll see if we score out Nisei Mark IIs or we get Sisyphuses, and how interesting the agenda suite goes. But it is going to matter on ice. Now, in defense of Mati Mukundo, when I played it, we didn't have the mana garms, we didn't have any of those interactions. But one of the cool things is that it's a once per turn ability, and the ice has to come from HQ. So back in the day when I played, Clan Vengeance was an interesting disruption tool, where if you can just wipe the hand, the Mati ability doesn't fire. Or whether people played like Wanton Destruction back then, it was just like there was a couple more ways to deal with it, because they had to figure out when to use it. It was kind of like baiting out an Ag Infusion boop before you actually played the run event you cared about. Still obviously incredibly powerful. I'm very excited to see it in Eternal today. Now, Larrea, she's playing Whizzard. If you look at the hand, just looks like good stuff. Whizzard might not be that difficult, that different than what Augustus played on the last side. I don't think Whizzard is going to fire too often. I think, unfortunately, last week we saw the Whizzard matchup against Matib make like 2 or 3 successful runs for the whole game, because being, believe it or not, it's an Anansi. Like that, it stops running as freely as you might want it to.
Yeah, from what I remember, Larrea's was a deck pretty similar to Augustus's, but I don't think she's on Faust.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that. But we'll find out. You're not entirely convincing me that the Team of Quindu Clan Vengeance standard format was a fun and healthy format.
I played
but
Geist.
We're going to see about these cards now. So
all right, and we're off. Shout out to both players. Again, this might be a bit framey on the recording, but I have no doubt it'll make a fair bit of sense. We'll talk you through everything here. So, Mati, it's really cool too to see like a player that plays in standard, and Augustus is pretty well known for playing high level Ag Infusion, Jinteki Glacier, over not so much this year maybe, but more so the last year, playing that at the highest level. And now you get to play something that's similar to that against an entirely different card pool, which is pretty good. So we'll see how that matters. We'll see how bad the face checks are. Do you believe in face checking to a Cortex lock and flatlining on turn 1? Like, how scared do you have to be about the face check, understanding the corporation can just feed you the worst thing they have in hand?
it's a little scary, but I think you have to take your opportunities to try and establish some early game pressure here, especially with there's just 5 credits at least, unless that's an NGR front for Augustus here, which it's once he gets up above 8 credits, that we start to see the really scary ice. I mean, one of the things that is fun from a spectator's point of view about this identity as Augustus resolves this Charlotte is that we get to see a bunch of the biggest, scariest ice of all time.
Yeah.
Played in the same deck, which is not something that you see in many Eternal decks. There aren't very many big ice decks in the format.
Yeah, we'll see how big that is. I think we're going to see maybe DNA trackers. I don't know if Chiashi is a bit too rich for us, but some of the ice back in the day, we had that bit of an ice thaw we're experiencing over the last couple of years. But things like DNA tracker, Anansi, as much as one of those is still around, is a heck of a card, that's for sure. Larrea setting up there.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I was going to say I played into Augustus and ran into DNA tracker not so long ago, and really had to double take and remember just how brutal that ice is.
If you read a teeny, just
really
change every or to and then just give it more numbers. It is quite good.
Yeah.
Blue Moose is on the table. Charlotte being advanced manually makes it a fair bit worse, but still obviously quite a strong card here. The Clan Vengeance has hit the table, so we're looking for ways to take damage. Sometimes that's just the Jinteki Ice, mind you. And a Rozeki and a Blue Moose means Larrea is going to be getting 3 credits a turn, which is definitely a start. Just double advancing it, I kind of like that. Just put your advancements on the Charlotte this turn, so it saves you next turn when you draw extra cards that you can actually just set up. And while R&D, mind you, is wide open, the question here is, even with a Desperado in hand, can you afford to face check when Matip Mukundo can deliver the worst ice they're holding in their hand? That's a cool thing too, is like sometimes with Asa Group, you're planning your turns on when you're going to double install. With Mati, you want to plan your turns where you actually keep ice in hand and figure out which ice you're actually going to commit to the table and which ice you want to be flexible with.
We see the current war
It begins.
starting here, as we had the rumor mill played to blank the Charlotte, but we've got the scarcity in to make the runner pay some more for these resources and unblank the Charlotte, more importantly. But we've got the second Rumor Mill in hand, and it is going to come down here. So, yeah, there's an exchange we often see in the format. Currents going back and forth. When one player runs out of currents, they're going to be struggling a little bit here. We're seeing a little bit of that framiness, but we get the scarcity straight back from...
Just like intended, straight back in, scarcity into rumor mill into scarcity, not only freeing Charlotte there, but now keeping those resources. They're much more expensive to install here. So the no one home doesn't really matter too much, but we're going to start with that 0 and start ripping through our hand and our deck to get things on the table. Oh, Spirocytes. Yeah, we saw a bit of that hit play, and that's a nice way to, you know, if you bottom out, you get that extra card draw. Technically a bit of tech against things like, I don't think you're expecting Neurospike Re-Education, but it might work against Brain Rewiring, maybe?
Yeah, I'd have to consult the modern text of Brain Rewiring to see, but yeah, at any rate, you can always just discard down with Faust to draw up again.
Oh, that's super
with,
cool.
With sites. And they are running Faust, by the way. I was wrong about that before. So that's an interesting one in the matchup because yeah, it's not the best at breaking some of these really big ice. You know, when DNA Tracker is saying, well, are you going to take 3 damage? And Faust is saying, oh, I can save you from those 3 damage if you discard 5 cards. It's not always a great spot to be in.
And back in the day when Faust was everywhere, the card that was paired off with a lot of the times was David. And notably, you see very little to no David in Modern Eternal. And that's because you see very little to no big ice in the format. And that's where Mati Mukundo steps out and like is a pretty strange artifact. It's the one deck besides, I don't know if people are going to end up playing Blue Sun at some point, that actually truly runs big ice.
Yeah, this is, you know, in standard we talk about things like Re-Education Ismari being an orthogonal strategy, right? Is in something that's presenting a problem that's very different from the kind of problems that you're generally building your runner deck to deal with. And here we see kind of the opposite happen, where most runner decks are built to deal with asset spam and kill combo.
Yeah.
And they're going to struggle a bit against what is just a turbocharged, quote-unquote, fair scoring deck.
And speak about a fair scoring deck, the remote server has a bunch of upgrades in there. We're expecting there to be a Lacosta sooner than later, rezzed when it matters. We're making our first run of the game, Desperado and Archives. The question is, now I'm nearly 20 cards into the deck, what is Augustus holding in the hand to throw on Archives? We have a Faust and 4 cards in hand. We also have a no one home, so net damage, if it's a big burst, which is not super common, we can deal with here. But the question is Mati going to be used here? And then if that's the case, can we run R&D? Can we run HQ? So this is always the choice here. Again, Mati Mukundo allows you to install a card, an ice, from your hand on the server and force the runner to back up into it. They can jack out technically in certain cases. I feel like the NSG text on Mati Mukundo is significantly different than the NSG text, or sorry, the FFG text, but maybe I'm just misremembering it.
Yeah, I can double check that. I just think, wondering about the motivation behind this run. I guess you're kind of trying to bait the empty trigger so that you can then fire the Katorga potentially to recur an important card.
Just Clan Vengeance swiping the hand.
The discard, yeah, just as you described, well predicted.
Because there's no agendas here in the hand. Now this means there might be no ice in hand. So whoa! That is 12 points in the bin. Now you can't steal all of those. Obokata, you can take one of them for sure, but now we're going to play a series of side games and you can just keep running back and forcing that side game. Now Augustus has the credits to play, but so does Larrea, so she can bid any number of credits here. You don't have to go 0. This is future perfect. It's not installed, so you're going to have to play a side game, play 0, 1, or 2. This could technically be it. If you win 2 side games, Larrea is going to have a very short game here.
Wow.
Larrea paid 1, Augie paid 0. Now it's the opposite. Augie on 0, Larrea on 1. Augustus
gets away with it.
Just dodging those bullets, but Larrea has 2 more clicks here to just run back and makes Desperado credits. This is incredible. That second Obokata, mind you, is 4 damage. Larrea does not have the click compression to draw up there. Left was just the moshing. Someone's going to pay 2 eventually. It's 1-2 again. Augustus dodges it. 1-1.
Oh, we get the steal.
She has 1 more shot to run back here, and 1 out of 3 times she just gets it if you don't want to live in that Yomi space.
Wow. This is, I mean, Augustus playing that so cool. When they were talking in the chat about potentially clan vengeancing to remove the ice,
Yeah.
on Augustus looking at 12 points of agendas being like, yes, ice, that's the problem.
Larrea going 0-1. That happens. You see the Charlotte there, the remote server setup. Lacosta is going to get to work, but it looks like there's still going to be 6 points left in archives. Now, we're assuming we're going to get at least 2 cards with mandatory draw and Charlotte, so there'll be ice on archives, but Larrea feeling really good against Mati Mukundo, making that text not fire, being up 6 points this early on. So wild.
God, I love side games.
Yeah.
That's such,
I miss
such
them.
good fun.
They're really good fun. You ever been to a tournament where like the winning play is on a side game? Like some people don't like it, I get it, but it is just the most fun. Subliminal being paid for credit. Now sometimes you want to keep that card around to discard, but Augustus saying, hey, I have 21 credits. You have 1 card in a Faust. That might not be enough here. So do you think?
Yeah, and you need those credits for playing side games.
Yeah. And Larrea can charge this. We're assuming that she'll have to get through 2 ice. Banhara can be a bit of a liability. There's a lot of subroutines on some ice in the format, but we're charging this. Whether it's a Nancy, but just a slot machine. I forgot about this one. Just 1 influence, one of the most undercosted, highest strength code gates. Now it doesn't end the run, but bad things happen. This is only a 3 credit loss, so it's not that bad. But now the question is, what does Mati Mukundo have to deliver onto archives at instant speed? Also, you'll notice throughout the stream, oh, there is, it's not, hey, Komainu. It's actually just the potentially lethal Saisentan. So we're going to have to break this because otherwise this will maybe chew through the hand as much as we have and I've had worse, which is functionally just steel skin.
Yeah, it's a nice one to have here for Augustus because this protects the Obokata, like one way or the other. It's either Faust or the net damage itself.
The Obokata was
but
not
we let a
safe?
subroutine fire.
If the Obokata hit the I've had worse into the steel skin, Larrea would have enough cards in hand and win the game. But unfortunately on 3 means we're coming down to the side game here. 1-0.
Oh, I think we might have missed an opportunity to discard.
Larrea could have,
I think
fed it. Damn.
I think that was why there was an ag in the chat, and I think that was yes, not quite seeing the line. Chose quite smartly to let one of the net damage subroutines fire to hit the I've had worse, because key difference between I've had worse and steel skin is that I've had worse only triggers when you take net or meat damage.
And
not
yes,
on any trash.
Yeah, that's a big
so
difference.
You can't just cycle it through.
So Larrea had the option there of throwing the steel skin scarring at instant speed to Faust, which functionally has a lot of the same paid abilities as an Audrey. So at any paid ability window, you can just draw 2 cards, which Larrea would have had it there. We know there's no spin doctors on the table, so she's gonna have to continue playing on here.
Oh, the Jackson.
Yes,
Jackson Howard
popping the Jackson. Mind you, the Proto Spin Doctor, not as good on tempo, but can just draw a lot of cards. So we're gonna go back in there. This should clean up archives. It looks like they're back on R&D. The question is if Larrea can force the R&D run, get a medium down, and just force, again, those cards out of hand. This Charlotte's been on the table since turn 1. It is turn 9. It has drawn so many cards, gained so many credits. And Augustus is still just holding on here.
Yeah, we're really seeing the implications of Augustus winning the current war here.
Yeah.
And both Charlotte and Jackson being absolutely crucial to Augustus staying in this game.
Just sending it. We probably have access to some bin breakers here. You can always throw out your MK Ultra, but you have to do it on approach. The window is interesting. A very cool interaction. Looks like we're just going to get an access there. No Mati Mukundo ability. So we can build up medium counters. But that's going to be the end of the turn. Back to Augustus here. It looks like our chat log is not scrolled down, so we're just going to follow. So an upgrade on R&D. I'm assuming we're going to see some of that Managarm interaction.
Yeah, and just making really triple sure that that remote is safe. With the Charlotte's gone, so presumably there's a Biovolts out there.
Yep, into an agenda.
Which again, Biovolt really just multiplying that thing that with MT. It looks like there's just one upgrade protecting R&D here, but we're going to have to pay for this Skunkworks. Then an ice is going to get installed with MT. Then we're going to have to pay for the Skunkworks again, potentially. Or if Augustus prefers, just end the run with Biovolt. And we see the big tracker, DNA tracker. So many cards to break this with Faust.
And 6 credits, has 3 different subroutines. So you can't just let this fire and save the Faust credits or save a couple of Faust cards. This is still going to be 2 axes off the top and allows you to trash the Managarm, which is pretty important. But you have to do that trigger once more. Left with only a pair of cats there. The 2 rumor mills. I don't think you're worried about snare, but that means Obokata protocols are safe in R&D.
Yeah, we're actually just bouncing here because we've drawn the rumor mills. Like, strangely, the card we'd have loved to have before that run started, we drew during the run in 2 copies. So we're going to need to. Oh no, sorry, it wasn't the choice to end the run. It was the Biovolt fire.
Oh, Biovolt was fired. Yeah, you're right. Because having to spend that many resources and not chasing the Mana Garm is pretty difficult. But Larrea now with no Mati ability is charging this server. Not playing the Rumor Mill first. You can always play that first if you're worried about things like any of the upgrades. So Charlotte or not Charlotte, excuse me, Caprice Nisei or Marcus. But it looks like we're just going to charge it, saying 10 credits doesn't go that far when your ice mostly costs 8 credits. We'll see if we have a cheap end the run, a border control. Even just a Thimble Rig will do a bit of work here, be a bit annoying.
Yeah, really good read from Larrea, showing that even though there's a lot of complicated card interactions going on here and a lot of like really kind of high impact moments in a game of Eternal, just playing the basic game of how many credits does your opponent have and where are the points is really important for pushing towards victory. But this Tattoo Bowler is another card that is absolutely busted in MT because you pick it up, swap it with another card, and then they run it into server and you put the Tattoo Bowler straight back down, ready to fire again. It's really quite something.
I'm imagining you also see Tributary probably, and there is Caprice, one of our first psychic clones. It's a Psy game, and this has a really strange timing. It's when you pass the last ice, and while Mati's already fired this turn, looks like we're just gonna have to win a Psy game there. And I do think if Larrea wins the Psy game, as long as it's not an Obicon on the remote server, she might just win the game.
She may well, yeah. You'd kind of assume that this is an agenda jammed here, given that the Charlotte got overinstalled. And here we go with the Caprice side game.
Chad is caught up, so we're going to be able to see the numbers bid here, 0, 1, or 2. Again, just making Augustus spend money is sometimes it's... Oh, she wins a side game! It's a melodic!
It was... Oh, it looks like it was both bid 0. They both bid 0, I think.
Both bid 0. Augie has been spending 0.
The straight 3-2.
Wow. So 1, 3, 2. This is not going to do that much damage, but it is just the best 3, 2 you have. But huge jump scare there, knocking forward after that side game. But Larrea with a clean 8-point sweep, just getting through. Hey, well played.
Wow, yeah. And that's Augustus's first loss in the event.
Yes.
So stopping Augustus from really starting to run away with this league in the first third here.
Yeah, you can check out the side game stats. Oh, it's a bit over there, but it tells you how many side games you won or lost, which is just really, really cool. How many times you bid at each number.
Oh, that's great. 5 wins.
Yeah, 5 wins to 2 wins.
5 side games, 1 for Corp.
That's kind of what you expect.
5 side games, 1 for Corp. So you won the more sides, but it wasn't enough. The 2 that you lost were 5 points worth of side games. So
yeah, very exciting again. Mati, this is where I mean, where like Mati mattering and getting those fork turns where you run R&D, you run the remote server. That's always good fun. But with the Charlotte firing, still not enough there. Augustus on the back foot after such an important Clan Vengeance. Well played to both players. And that means that is our last game for week 2. So we can look at a bit of the standings. Mind you, Augustus Caesar still at the top there on 9 points. And then, mind you, some players have bye weeks. Those don't count as wins. They're just a week off. So Augustus doesn't have the bye week yet, while other players do. So the standings will be a bit more volatile. And then we have a whole bunch of players on 6. And then, of course, a couple players on 3. This is only week 2, though. We have 7 more weeks. Each player will play every other player in the tournament. So it's way too early to call what's going on now. But this is just an exciting start. Next week, we'll be back again on Sunday, the exact same time, 1 week from now. And then week 4 is also such an exciting week because players are able to change their decks, whether it's small tunements or refinements, or whether it's going to be a full new deck list that you want to bring up and see how far it takes you through weeks 4 to 6. This has been really fun.
yeah, wow, really, for what incredible games. It's been like, we had a couple of the kind of, account siphon happened early in the game. The game didn't really happen after that, which you do get in Eternal. It's kind of a swingy format like that sometimes. At least those games don't tend to last too long. But we had a lot of really like thrilling and bizarre games in this round. Really, really fun.
Yeah, always excited, whether it's to see some of the old cards or some of the interactions between the newest NSG stuff and some of your favorite old FFG stuff. Eternal is pretty interesting. And so if you want to know more, mind you, we'll try and link Toron's article in the bottom of this YouTube video if you want to get a bit of a jump start. But if you're just watching the Eternal Super League, it'll be back for the next 7 more Sundays. So buckle up. We got a lot more Eternal to come. Cobra, that's going to be the end of the stream today. Thanks so much for joining me on a Sunday. Do you have any shout outs before we close this thing down?
Not particularly, no. Just, stay tuned to nullsignal.games for all your upcoming news about Elevation preview season starting soonish.
Cool.
And other exciting news coming up soon. And yeah, really, really fun to watch this. Thanks, Andre, and always a pleasure to share the mic with you.
Yeah, same to you. My name is Andre from the Matchball Grid. I'll be streaming on some Sundays. I'll let you know if you watch on Matchball Grid, but we'll be back a couple times throughout these next 9 weeks. Thanks again for all who are dropping by. If you're watching this live or on the VOD, if you want to just leave a like on the video, leave a comment, all that sort of nice stuff is great, and share with some friends. If you think Eternal is a bit approachable, we'd love to hear that as feedback. We're trying to make this as clean as we can. Thanks so much for joining us on a Sunday. We'll be back in a week. See you then. Ciao.
Bye.